across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very, very, very good morning to you on another sweltering hot day across the country. But yes, if you're here today, you did survive the heat yesterday. I'm sorry to keep banging on it. It just really annoys me. But anyway, I'll let that go. 3 minutes past 10 is the time. This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Great to have your company, as always. Lots to talk about. And whether you are listening on DAB+ radio or on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or on your connected device, thank you so much for joining us. Always appreciate your company. Coming up, we are going to be talking about ministers. We mentioned this on the show yesterday, trying to dodge the blame yesterday after the number of illegal channel migrants officially passed the 50,000 mark. That happened around 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon after I was on air. But the former Labour Home Secretary, Jackie Smith, now an Education Minister, blamed the Tories in the morning, claiming what is happening is a result of the last government. Is it? I mean, the fact that they said they were going to smash the gangs, but in fact we've seen the number of arrests for people smuggling go down quite noticeably rather than up, suggests that's not quite working. Among the other things that aren't quite working is our trust in the police. But police forces have been told to release the suspect's ethnicity and nationality in high-profile cases under a landmark new guidelines. Forces will disclose the ethnicity and nationality of a suspect when it could reduce the risk of disorder, they are told, or there are high levels of false information about the incident, usually on the internet, or there is a significant public interest. But they still get to decide. Personally, I'm very much more interested in the nationality than the ethnicity of any migrant and of any suspect, and in particular their immigration status. Plus the extraordinary stats that came out at the end of my show yesterday, official data showing there are now 1 million more people on jobless benefits in Britain since Labour came to power last year. In just a year. In just a year, we've now got 8 million people claiming universal credit. The vast majority of whom are not working and not actually required to look for any work. I mean, if you look at the actual stats, and there's various graphs around, I mean, the sort of preparing for work and all that nonsense, which absolutely, we've got a whole load of people who are basically sitting on their fat backsides on the sofa who are not working while we're being asked to pay more tax. And oh yes, that will include inheritance tax. Not for the very wealthy. They've all put it in trust funds. Their kids or they will not end up paying an inheritance tax. But parents could be prevented from making unlimited tax-free gifts to their children before they die under a proposed tightening of those rules. So the Treasury can basically lift the cap on the value of gifts that could be passed on before death. This comes as the Prime Minister and the Chancellor face looking to plug a black hole of up to £50 billion or more in this autumn's budget. So loads of good news for you too. Lots of other good news around as well. Most fascinating of which is a call from MPs for all those under 22 to get free bus travel. It was up to me. I'd ban everyone under 22 from getting the bus. They're the ones who terrorise all the full-paying passengers on every single bus I've been on in the last 20 years. But we'll get to that, and we'll get to that with my delightful guest today, Claire Pearsall, former Conservative Government Advisor, and joins us always on a Wednesday. A very good morning to you.
Morning.
So much to talk about. Let's just get to it. We've got loads of top guests coming. We've got lots to talk about, and I've got 2 questions for you, and I'll tell you what they are so you can get on the phone lines now. But obviously, this 50,000 channel migrants, the official figure coming to Britain since Labour got into power, but a Labour minister blaming the Tories for the record numbers. I'm just not sure that's going to wash, Jackie Smith. I want to know, who do you blame and why? I mean, I'm going to say pretty much everybody involved, but who do you blame specifically and why? Also, there's 1 million more people claiming jobless benefits in Britain since Labour came to power last year. What's your reaction to that on both of those questions, and indeed anything else we talk about today? And if you want to call up your 21 saying you need free sodding bus fare, give us a call as well. 0344, I'll put you right. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text on 87222. Get in touch on X at Talk TV. Calls are charged at the national rate. Text cost £1. Standard network rate message. Claire, Where do we start? Those official figures. It is now official. 50,000 migrants have arrived across the Channel as of yesterday. So as of Monday, the official figures we get always a day later. It's a record speed under Keir Starmer. He said he would smash the gangs. This is after Rishi Sunak stopped the boats. He's also overseen a fall in the number of people smuggler arrests, which suggests that it's not going terribly well. 192 people were arrested for organised immigration crime in the 12 months to April, down 16% from 229 arrested under the Tories in the previous year. On every possible metric, the numbers are looking worse on illegal migration than they were under the Tories. So who do you blame and why?
I think there's a lot of blame to go around. I think the previous Conservative administration has its hands
The Home
dirty.
Office that you worked in?
Absolutely, the Home Office that I worked in. I have to say, we didn't have this level of boat crossings when I was there. Just always like to put that out there. But I do think that each administration has to take some blame for this. But Keir Starmer, from day one, said he was going to smash the gangs and this was all going to work. Well, here we are a year on. Yeah. I don't expect things to be done quickly, but you do expect something to have made a difference by now.
And again, there's a lot of talk that actually the dropping of the Rwanda plan did actually mean, oh, OK, great, we'll all turn up. There is that argument from the Home Office, I'll give them this, that actually he came into power over a summer. And of course, he's coming into power in the winter. I mean, we know we get more people arriving in the summer. That he's you know, all of that. I get that. And he, in fact, had 2 summers because he had the whole of July and August last year, and now he's getting July and August this year. I get that. That's fair enough. But at the end of the day, mate, even on any metric, the figures have gone up. On any metric, even. And when he says, as Mike Graham was just pointing out, when he says, you know, you come here, you will be detained, you know, and you will be deported. You won't. You won't, because as we saw, and we're going to be talking to the Sun journalist who got this, but a live stream from an illegal migrant calling himself Alexandra, showing his step-by-step channel crossing on TikTok with music. I mean, you know, the guy could probably get a job. You know, he's obviously proficient on his on tech, boasting, my dream was to come here. And he's sitting in a 4-star asylum hotel. It looks rather pleasant, actually. And he's sending pictures showing the nice view from the window, saying, you know, you should come here. I mean, this is what we are up against. And while people are still in 4-star hotels, and you can see some of the footage if you are watching us on YouTube right now, you can see why people think, well, it's worth coming. Because it is worth coming. Because they won't be deported. The odds are they won't be detained. I mean, they're detained for like 10 minutes. But this guy cussed at the weekend. That was after this rule came in, that 50, you know, 1 in, 1 out, around 50 a week. Well, he obviously wasn't one of them.
Well, and it just goes to show that this is the problem, that you're being put up in nice accommodation, you're given everything, you've got, you know, 3 square meals, you've got a room, you've got people around you, you're given some pocket money to go and spend.
Yeah.
Where's the deterrent on that?
I know,
These are not basic places they're staying. They are hotels.
They're nicer hotels than most people can afford to go on their own holidays.
There's a load of kids that go off youth hosteling and will put up with 10 people in a room.
My daughter was youth hosteling. One time there was all bunk beds. They had like 18 people in a room in a shared bathroom.
Exactly.
But no, not good enough for a Channel migrant. Good enough for a Brit who's paying for it.
And you've got a whole bunch of bleeding heart liberals that say that we need to treat all of these people fairly, nicely.
Yes, let's treat them fairly, and they can go into detention camps, which are nicer than the places they're...
And I think that's where everybody is now starting to look.
I think it's interesting. Henry Badenoch said it yesterday. I'm going to throw this. There's the front page of the Times. I'm going to hold that up right now. Channel boat migrants arriving at record speed. Now, there's a picture on there, and it's a picture of a load of migrants running for the boat, because migrants in Calais, they put the boats... I mean, it's interesting, of course, you know, obviously the cameraman was able to run a bit faster than many of the migrants for the boat. But if you look at this picture now, one thing I notice about this picture is I mean, it doesn't look like it's all mostly women and children, as the Treasury Minister claimed a month or so ago. Looks to me like, no, unless they're all identifying as women and children, they absolutely all look like men to me. But it's a photo of all these men running for this boat. I'm going to tell you right now, if Nigel Farage and Reform use this picture at the next general election to illustrate the migrant issue, they will be accused of being bigots and xenophobes and racists, like they were when they had the legitimate pictures, the real pictures of so-called Syrian refugees trailing across Europe in lines to get to Germany back in 2015. This picture is on the front page of the Times. It's on the front page of most national newspapers today.
Yeah.
But that picture will if you use it to make a political point. I mean, it's a real picture of real men, not women and children. It's an invasion. If you put them in uniform, it's an invasion. Let's call it what it is. 50,000 young men of fighting age arriving in our country. And we don't know who they are, but we know for a fact, because the Home Office had briefings on this, Robert Jenrick has revealed, as a former Home Office Minister, that we know for a fact that some of them will be terrorists. I'm sorry, This is insane. This is insane. No sane country would allow this to happen. Now, the fact that many countries in Europe have been willing to let it happen for years, well, more fool them. A lot of them are wising up. Germany, their new Chancellor, has cut it by about 50%, asylum seekers. And I say zero. I'm now a zero girl. We are done. We are closed. Bye-bye. If we have to break international law, sod international law. International law is only meaningful if it's actually in your benefit as a nation. I'm sorry, it just isn't meaningful in any meaningful way at all anymore. It's got to be changed, or we just say we're not playing along. This has got to stop.
And that's what Greece have turned around and said. We aren't going to deal with any asylum claims. You can all disappear off. We're not having it. And I think that you are going to start to see that come across Europe.
Yeah.
Great Britain is always going to be late to the party, especially when we've got the kind of government that we do have.
Yeah.
And I think that there are some real issues with what are we going to do with them? And no political party, and this goes for the Conservatives and it goes for Reform, have said what they will do. It's all very well shouting at the votes.
Yeah, you need to either you stop them coming, or you get rid of them immediately, or you make their life so unpleasant while they are here. And in prison level, human rights lawyers will go crazy. Well, we're going to have to change the law then. And again, this is the thing. Deal with it. You have to make life so unpleasant they want to leave. It's as simple, and it can become someone else's problem. If Europe insists on having free, open borders in the Schengen area, that's their problem. It shouldn't become ours. I'm really, really done with this. I absolutely am. What do you make of the police being told to release these ethnicity and nationality stats on suspects in high-profile cases? We had a string of secrecy rows, all started across Axel Rubicana, and the Welsh choir boy. He's a Welsh. He's born in Cardiff. The man is born. He on a technical. Yes, of course he was. But come on. People had seen, locals had seen pictures. They'd spoken to people who'd seen the man running out of the building and being arrested and things. They knew he wasn't perhaps what their image of a Welsh choir boy was. If that makes them racist, so be it. But people have got eyes and ears. And then we had the issue where about them not giving the information, and then when a car ploughed into a parade of Liverpool of football fans, we were told within an hour that it was a white man born in Britain who had been arrested. But we're often not told this information, and we know it was Reform councillors who revealed in Warwickshire that actually the two suspects who'd been arrested for the rape of a 12-year-old girl were asylum seekers, were Afghan asylum seekers in a local asylum hotel. Now the police saying, "Oh, it's outrageous that that information was passed on. It was given to them in confidence." But the public have a right to know, do they not? When should we? When shouldn't we know? I would say the nationality is kind of more important. Their immigration status more important than the colour of their skin.
Yeah, it's not the colour of the skin that makes any difference. You do want to know if it is.
It should be recorded. It's important to know.
It absolutely should be recorded.
Every detail we have about people.
It's not vital for that piece of information to go out to the general public. I think that the police need to put this information out quickly. I think that nationality is important. Having said that, I was born in Cyprus. Doesn't make me Greek. I am British, so I think we need to be a little bit careful.
But is your passport British or not?
It is.
Yeah,
British.
so you're British.
But whenever people say foreign-born,
I had a guest on, James Mathewson, on Monday, and I was talking about Albanians. He said, "What do you mean? How do you know he was Albanian?" He was Albanian. What do you mean by Albanian? He was Albanian. He had an Albanian passport. He was Albanian. What a conversation to have. Yeah, but that's a classic lefty. They don't believe in borders, No one's illegal. Point. Everyone can live anywhere. We're all one. Oh, all that nonsense. We are the world. Rubbish. We're British.
But I think that we need to know. And it stops all of the misinformation on all sides if you put it out there. If you say this is man, woman, this is the age, this is their nationality, this is their immigration status, then there is no room for manoeuvre.
They need to be a little bit more accurate about whether it's a man or a woman, and let's go with facts rather than whether someone identifies as whatever. I mean, we'll come to that later in the show. That is interesting. This also comes at another two more police stories in the news. One is a policing chief, he's the police crime commissioner, who's calling on the public to stand up to shoplifters. And I say, oh, well, that's all very well, mate. And I am someone who has challenged a shoplifter, but then I'm a lunatic and I get involved in things, and I probably shouldn't for my own good, because it's probably rather unsafe. But given that most security guards in shops won't tackle shoplifters because they've basically been told it's not worth the risk, it's a bit much. This is a Tory Police and Crime Commissioner for Thames Valley, Matthew Barber. He says the public has a duty to stand up to shoplifters rather than relying solely on police officers. Well, we know we don't rely on police officers. They don't sodding well turn up to shoplifting. If you're not even going to challenge people, he says you're not going to try and stop them, then people will get away with it. That's not just about policing. That's a bigger problem with society. People who don't do anything, you're part of the problem. Now, I agree with the sentiment, and I am someone who will stand up to people on the tube. I'm loving those guys who tackled the guy on the tube who had his meat and two veg out and was shouting F off with people. Absolutely. You tackle him, do whatever you have to do and get him off the train. No problem with that at all. They should get a hero's welcome, not an arrest or charges. But actually, for a lot of people, and he's saying, I'm not saying you should be like manhandling people and rugby tackling them to the floor, but yes, certainly flag up. What are you doing? I mean, certainly when someone tailgates me through the tube barrier and they're not paying, I always stop and say, no, you sodding well get off, pay your sodding fare. Yeah. I'm saying sodding a lot, but you know the word I want to be using. Just not allowed to use that on air. But I'm trying to train myself. The thing is, people know that these people are dangerous. Certainly in my local supermarket, the staff have had bottles smashed and then held at them. I mean, they're violent. Someone who will go in and thieve is by definition someone who's not guided by normal moral society. And the local chemists, they say, they come in, if you try and stop them, if you lock the cupboards, they just smash everything up and threaten the staff. So the idea that we should all be sort of going, I say, dear sir, stealing that bottle of wine, that bottle of vodka or whatever, I say, well, I'd so much rather you didn't do that. Please don't. Please put it back. I mean, give me a break.
Yeah, but it's also, if somebody does go and tackle them, and I've seen instances where members of the public have tackled
and I love them for it.
Absolutely, I think they're great, and I admire them for doing it.
But they risk, as you know,
they do. They risk prosecution should the perpetrator of said crime be injured. They can turn around and say, "Well, you've done it. That's assault. I want you arrested," and the police will come down on that hero, in my mind, not on the individual that's going to get away with nicking whatever it is that he's nicked. So that's a real problem. It's also...
Plus they might have a knife or acid. You've got no idea.
The danger aspect. But it's not just for you when you go shouting at the person in front of you to stop doing whatever they're doing, but it's also the other people around you who will get caught up in it. So little Mrs. Miggins in my local supermarket would get caught up if I had a go at someone.
But there is an element, I do think, again, if more people stood up, and I feel this whether it's on public transport, in the street, the cyclists, steaming past, I always stop. You've literally just gone past a woman with a young baby. You don't know, or a little toddler. You don't know what the toddler's going to do. You could have killed that toddler. F off. Which was it your problem? Well, because I live here, and if more people, everyone in the street went, get off your sodding bike. I think there should be more people power, but people are understandably and reasonably afraid of A, getting hurt themselves, and B, getting prosecuted. But I think we need to have a more have a go society, because if the police aren't doing the job, then we are going to have to do the job for them. Fascinating, so the government talking about expanding their use of facial recognition vans. I was in Oxford Street, London's, in fact, the country's premier shopping street, apparently. I mean, not anymore, if you look at the state of it. I mean, it's just sort of dodgy sweet shops and boarded up shops. I mean, it's really not a sort of top-ranking street at all anymore. But there was a big facial recognition van outside Bond Street tube station, right, so fairly near Oxford Circus, one of the most famous areas in London. There was a beggar nearby, and actually there were 9 police officers all standing around doing nothing, apparently. And I said, there's a beggar over there, blatantly, openly begging. I mean, 10 yards away. You're going to arrest the beggar? They informed me that it was not an offence to beg. I pointed out that it absolutely still was, and the law had not been fully enacted. And it's interesting. 3 different police officers told me that, and I'm like, really? Because It really isn't. I've literally discussed it on my show like a few months ago, I remember. But they informed me that this was good use of their time. They were on this. Now, it was about, they'd been there since 11 a.m. and it was about 2:30. And I said, OK, so if you arrested people, I mean, you appear to all be standing around chatting.
Yeah.
How does this work? And they said it was a very good use of resources, and in the last year using the vans they had actually apprehended some 1,000 people. And I said, well, each time with 8 coppers, in fact there were 9 in total, 9 coppers on duty. They said yes, they thought that was a good use of resources. If you work it out over the time they've used it, I would suggest not a good use of resources.
No.
But they said they were apprehending people who were wanted, court warrants. And I said, oh, well, good, there's a court warrant out for the guy who's a suspect for stealing my handbag last year. Hope you find him. They said, well, you would think it was a good use of resources if they found your man. I went, if you told me where he lived, I bet you I could find him person. I bet you anything, if I put my mind to it, I could find my suspect bag thief in a couple of days. But then I'd be arrested for doing that, wouldn't I? But what was interesting, I said, so how many people have you arrested today? And they said, we can't tell you that. I mean, you can tell me that. I said, I'm not sure. I mean, they said it would be dubious to give me that information. Now, I managed to persuade the head guy to tell me. And then the head guy, the supervisor, and they're all very nice. These chaps were all very nice. And he said, two people. We have dealt with 2 people. I said, oh, so you've arrested 2 people? And he said, no, we haven't arrested. I said, so you've been here 3.5 hours, 9 coppers, 8 on one side of the road, one on the other. And you've not arrested anybody. I said, but you think it's a good use of police resources. They said, well, by the end of the day, we're definitely, we've already booked up custody suites, so we're absolutely, we know we're going to arrest people. I said, so you're going to get more people at the end of the day. I said, is there a possibility that people who are wanted by the courts, who have a warrant out for their arrest, who know that the police are looking for them, that when they see a big van with facial recognition police van and a bunch of coppers lining the street, they might choose to turn away and walk down another street? Yeah. And they looked at me as if that was the dumbest thing that was ever said.
But also, that had been publicised. So the one person has seen the facial recognition van, they would have got to put it on social media, they would have sent a message to a friend, and that information goes around. So if you're wanted, as you say, on a warrant, you're going to go nowhere near a busy shopping area. I mean, because you would have seen on social media that's where they are.
Well, obviously I'll contact later to find out if they did arrest more people by the end of the day. But genuinely, it's one of the biggest sort of pickpocketing, phone snatching, bag snatching areas in London. We know there's been a crackdown, but they insisted that it was now a priority. They were really nice guys. I'm pretty sure they wanted to be nabbing thieves. They seem like good people. The fact they didn't know the law and vagrancy, I find a little bit worrying. And again, the fact that begging is going to be made. They said, well, he's not bothering anyone. I mean, I don't think that there should be people begging. And I spoke to the man, he was Bulgarian, he claimed. It's like, well, OK, so were you here legally from the EU, in which case you could get a job, or you're not here legally, you've come since, go home. I think those are 2 options that are both valid. Begging on the street in Oxford Street, not valid. But that's what we're up against. I mean, quite apart from the fact that all the law-abiding people, I would say largely tourists on Oxford Street, are having their personal identity looked at, checked against things. I mean, law-abiding people are being caught up in that dragnet. Does that sit well with you?
No, it doesn't. I mean, I'm all for CCTV being around, but I do worry that images are going to be stored and used in ways that we don't know, and that information isn't going to be released out to us. So that's what concerns me. But also, if you're looking at the use of technology in crime, why on earth do you need 3 hours worth of coppers on the street? As nice as they are and as good at their job as they are, if you've got technology involved, why should
it's
it be so
supposed to be either or, isn't it? I have to say, I was not convinced, although they were very nice. There was one who was a bit of a... but the others were all very, very lovely. So I was confrontational in asking a question, right? I think I'm a member of the public. I've paid my taxes. I'm entitled to ask
how you're spending
my money. It seems to me to be a reasonable question. We don't have much money left, just finally, because of course jobless benefit claimants have jumped by, and this is amazing, 1 million in just a year. 8 million people now claim universal credit. Now, some people are working.
Yes.
Most of them, though, not working full-time. That's why they need the extra benefits. Most people, there was like 3.7 million people who are not required at all to look for work. There's a few million who are required to look for work but aren't actually getting a job. Why? I wonder why. I think you and I, if we went to look for a job, we'd probably find one. But we can't afford to have another million people in this country claiming benefits in 1 year. At this rate, there'll be 4 people with a job paying tax and everyone else is going to be on benefits.
And it's quite interesting when you read down the very different articles. It can include people who are in full-time education. OK, fine, get that. Over state pension age, somebody with a child under 1, and those considered to have no prospect of work. What does that actually mean?
What does that mean? Exactly. Well, I'd love to hear from you. Get in touch. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. We've got so much more to talk about. I've definitely had my Weetabix this morning. Do give us a call. 0344 499 1000. Your call's up next. This is Talk.
You know, I can speak personally as a mum, as a grandmother to 2 young children of just 3 and a year and a half, and it worries the life out of me. What sort of world are we bringing our children into? You know, I don't even feel safe anymore working late in my own office. I used to work until sometimes 9 or 10 at night. Now I go when my staff leave because I don't feel safe on the streets, and that's in Gravesend.
Us on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. It's 10:30. I'm already over time because I've been yapping and ranting too much. Not Claire, she had barely got a word in. Claire, well, I promise we'll talk to you a little bit later in the show. Let's get to the calls though. 0344 499 1000 is the number to have your say. And Carl is on the line in Pinner. Carl, good morning to you. You want to talk about the latest migration figures?
Yeah, good morning, Julia. If I was PM, I would stop the boats tomorrow. It's so simple.
Yeah.
All you do is pick them up safely, as we do, but then you take them straight back to France. What are the French going to do? Start a war against us?
Well, there is that, isn't there? Realistic. I mean, knowing Macron, probably. I'd like to think if we go through over the years, we'd probably win. But this is the thing. It'd be good for the economy. I'm just saying, there's plus sides to everything. If they won't accept them, and we can't. I mean, we could just literally manhandle them and drop them into the water, I suppose. But
no, not in the water. Just go to a French port and get them off the boat and then pull away. That's all you got to do. We haven't got a leader that has the will to do it. He doesn't seem to want to stop it.
No, I know he definitely doesn't really care. He's not bothered. I would love us to do something like that. I think, but again, I wonder if they've actually game played that. Like, what would actually happen if they did do that? Claire Pearson, you're nodding your head, and you worked at the Home Office. Did they look at that?
Yes, yeah, of course we looked at it. I mean, bearing in mind we only had a few boats, but what the French could do in return is collect up everybody that they find on a beach, put them on a boat, and drop them off on the coast of the UK.
Oh, so it could get worse, Carl.
Yeah.
What do you say to that?
Well, in that case, all we have got to do is revoke all the French fishing licences. Their French fishermen wouldn't like that. They'd even stop the boats themselves, I reckon, you know.
Oh, that's it. But we basically got to go... Yeah. We've got to get a bit of Trump. Got a bit of Trump on this. That really do. Carl, I'm loving your work. Go for it. Let's go to Tony. He's on the line in Lancashire. Hello, Tony. What do you want to say?
Morning, Julia.
Morning.
I just wanted to talk about the lawyer situation, these human rights lawyers.
Yeah.
Are we the only country in Europe that offers this sort of free legal aid? Because it seems to me that they're laughing. As soon as they land here, they're lawyered up. We're paying for them to fight their case to stay here. These lawyers are absolute leeches, because, I mean, they're the ones coming up with, oh, yeah, just say your kid doesn't like Afghanistan chicken nuggets so you can stay here. Anybody else, any other countries do that?
Well, that's why my understanding is certainly that France doesn't provide like free translation services, all the lawyers and things, and therefore that's why the people don't apply there. I think some of the sort of probably more Nordic, sort of Northern European countries do, but no, I think we're probably the biggest soft touch on that front.
Yeah, because that's got to be costing us a fortune. Not only that, is they just tie it up in months and years, don't they? And they can appeal and they can appeal again. Meanwhile, these lawyers are sitting there just absolutely creaming this in. This is going to be the easiest job on the planet, because they've already got all the lists. Just say this, just say that.
Yep, I'll completely agree with you. We need, and again, I'm not saying I want people like tortured or killed, but no, I don't think if you're a legal migrant in our country, you have the same human rights and legal rights as a Brit or someone who's come here legally. I just don't think that should be a controversial statement.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you know, when you were saying about where you're born, it doesn't mean that you're British. If you're born at sea, you're not a dolphin.
Totally. And again, it's like in America. If you're born in America, you are automatically American. If you're born in Britain, you're not automatically British. It's a small point. We're all born elsewhere. Very good point, Tony. Thank you very much indeed. 10:33 is the time. We'll take a quick break. Up next, going to be talking to Popular Conservatism's Mark Littlewood about these extraordinary stats showing an extra 1 million people claiming jobless benefits, claiming universal credit in just the last year. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back. This is indeed Talk. 10:35 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Claire Pearsall's still here. We'll find her thoughts on what my next guest has to say. He's Mark Littlewood. He's Director of Popular Conservatism and joins us. A very good morning to you.
Morning, Julia. Good to speak with you.
Good to speak with you. Lots to get through. Let's start, though, with this jobless benefits claimants. This is the most extraordinary stat. It's up by 1 million. I mean, 1 million in just 1 year. I mean, these stats are pretty extraordinary anyway in terms of it was 5.5 million people claiming universal credit in 2020. And then since then, it has just ballooned. These people must still think we're on furlough, for goodness sake, on lockdown. It's absolutely ballooned to 8 million in total now. 1 million migrants on benefits, interestingly as well. But 3.7 million, lots of numbers here, but 3.7 million of those 8 million people not only don't work, because some people, there's a few who do work, but not full-time and not on decent wages, but 3.7 million of them have no requirement to work whatsoever. Who are these people? Why has it grown so much? And what on earth should we do about it?
Yeah, Julia, I'm trying to work out what unreported plague has swept through the United Kingdom, causing us to be the most sickly country in the world.
You'd think it would have made the BBC News by now, right?
You would have thought the mainstream media would have picked it up by now.
Probably they've all got long COVID. It hasn't hit any other country, but long COVID must have hit them.
There you go. There's obviously something in the water here, isn't there? Look, the truth is this, isn't it? People respond to market incentives and prices. And basically, sickness in 2025 is the new version of unemployment and I can't find a job from back in the 1970s and the 1980s. If it is easy to sign off work and get some sort of check, and there's no real obligation on you to look for a job, don't be surprised when people do it. You've just been talking a few minutes ago about what a soft touch we are with immigrants. Well, we're quite a soft touch with our own indigenous working age population too, right? Yeah. So, and I think the particular problem, which is harder to monitor, is mental health problems. Yeah. Look, if you have just had a stroke or you've broken your leg or something, this is pretty binary, and a doctor can say yes, this person has broken their leg or has.
They can't work as a builder.
Yeah, exactly. But if you say I am depressed or feeling anxious or stressed, damn difficult to monitor, quite easy for a doctor just to say, I believe you, here's your note, you've got...
Well, you can believe that someone feels that. It doesn't mean they can't work.
Yeah, and usually the best solution to those problems is to get a job and go to work, right? So usually that's the medicine that should typically be prescribed, not sit at home and watch television. So it is a disaster. I mean, in effect, these people should be counted as unemployed rather than sick. And I think the solution is we need to be an awful lot tougher on this. So the overriding assumption needs to be, if you are of working age and want an income, you're going to have to work. Now, there will be...
Sorry, how incredibly right-wing and outrageous of you to say such a thing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind if people don't work, but then they shouldn't expect an income.
Oh, right? I do mind if people don't work, because if you're able-bodied and able-bodied, you actually have a duty to contribute to help other people in society.
So you ban early retirement and things like that?
No, people have contributed, but I genuinely think that there is a duty of care. If you want to have things like roads and hospitals and schools, it might be an idea, police officers and fire stations, it might be an idea if you made a contribution to it, and if you are able to work, you should make a contribution to that. I don't think that's not if you want to live in if you want to go and live in the middle of nowhere in a tent and have none of those and don't have access, and if you get ill, you don't expect to have a doctor or nurse treat you, then fine. But otherwise, if you want to have those societal facilities, you need to contribute towards them.
Yes, I think there's some truth in that.
I'm a socialist at heart, Mark. From each according to their ability, to each according to their need.
You can sometimes be a very dangerous pinko lefty, Julia. No, I think that's right. I mean, I think you need to also change the benefit system to be a bit more contributory. That's what it used to be with national insurance, that you can claim out on national insurance if you've paid your national insurance stamp. It's there as an insurance system. Bit of the same way if you don't take out insurance on your jewellery and it gets nicked, nobody's going to bail you out, right? It's only those who pay the insurance. So I'd like a much more contributory system rather than just tax goes in.
That wouldn't be unreasonable, would it? But looking at these stats, so you've got these 8 million people, and there's got a useful graph here, and it basically shows that, well, there's 2 million people who come under the various categories of planning for work, preparing for work, searching for work. I mean, but they're not actually working, but there's over 2 million of them. I don't know what's planning for work and preparing for work. I don't know what that is.
Preparing for work's getting out of bed on time, putting some clothes on and going to an office. That's the preparation.
I mean, it seemed to me that would be, I mean, again, but 3.7 million with no work requirements. And again, we all know that a lot of those be people written off on the sickness benefits. We've seen a lot of that, lots of documentaries of that, a lot of that being exposed. It'll happen under the Tory government. I mean, it's massively gone off the scale since we've seen, I mean, really has shot up since Labour have come into power. But what happened in the last year for that to go up so much?
Well, I think more and more people have clocked on to the fact, and these facts are changing in real time.
So we publicised it and said how awful it was, and they went, brilliant, I'll have a bit of that.
Quite. It's very easy to get. People are becoming more and more aware of how easy it is to get. In general terms, it's less and less attractive to work because taxes are going up, especially stealth taxes. So it looks like there's no chance that the income tax thresholds will be increased.
Having to leave the house, get up in the morning.
Yeah, but I'm afraid, if you incentivise sitting at home and watching television and disincentivise getting off your backside and going to a place of work, guess what people will do?
I know. But this is the thing.
More people sitting on their sofa and less people in
a lot of people who make policy, they talk about work being enriching. They tend to do A, well-paid jobs. B, they get a lot of sort of social status from their job. They get a lot of pleasure from their job because they do interesting work. I've done a lot of the rubbish. I've got some great jobs in my time. I've got a fantastic job now. I'm very, very lucky. But there are a lot of jobs that I've done and which a lot of people do for their whole lives, which aren't very rewarding. They're not very well paid. And no, you're never going to get off the minimum wage or close to it. And it's kind of drudgery and it's really boring and it's repetitive and you might have a rotten boss. And so the people who make these policies who think, but of course no one would choose to be unemployed. They've never done those jobs. They don't understand why it would be a completely rational decision if it were available to not do those jobs if you can be on something close to the same income.
No, that's exactly right. They ignore the kind of leisure gap, or they assume, as you say, that those in, good and exciting jobs like yours, Julia, are doing it, as much for the love of the work as for the salary. But if your basic salary is going to be around, I don't know, let's say £15,000 to £20,000 a year, that sort of range, it probably isn't worth you working unless you really like sweeping the streets or cleaning graffiti off walls.
Which, by the way, is a more useful job than I do.
Well, a very useful job. So here's a thought, right? A couple of decades ago, Wisconsin in America tackled this by bringing in a workfare plan.
Loving workfare.
Their basic idea was, if you are able-bodied, I mean, I'm simplifying a bit, but you've got to turn up at the park gates at 8 o'clock on Monday to Friday, and we will give you some tasks, collecting litter, removing graffiti from walls, whatever,
But you will turn up.
And you will turn up. And if you don't turn up, you will not get your benefits. And they sort of assumed, I understand it, that this would mean that we would suddenly have loads of people doing, almost community service, and the parks would be cleaner and the rest of it. What actually happened within a mere number of weeks is, miracle of miracles, these people then suddenly found a job in the private sector.
Yeah, funnily that. Also, I imagine there will be a large number of people who actually were already working in the private sector. They were just doing it off the books.
Therefore couldn't turn up. So I think that would be an interesting way of approaching it. There is some sort of administrative overhead, but basically if you're able-bodied and you want to claim your welfare benefits, we expect to see you at the park gates or at the station entrance.
I would
it might be,
love that.
Every morning.
I'd love all you. Come on, people, get in touch. Would you be in favour of that? 0344 499 1000. Do get in touch. Let's also talk about the migrant issue, because again, it's a huge cost, a huge drain to society. We've got fewer and fewer people working, taxes going up on the few people who are working, an ageing population. But yeah, let's just import a load of people, both legally and illegally. 50,000 is the official tally as of yesterday. It's already gone up since Channel migrants arriving. And ministers try to say, well, this is the fault of the Tories. They allowed this to grow, even though, of course, they've arrested fewer people smugglers since they've been in office than the Tories did in the last year of them being in office. What do you make of that?
Well, look, I'm going to try and be as fair-minded as I can. I think when a new government comes into office, it inherits whatever the previous government, gave it. But we're now more than a year in. And my worry about this government is as if they've turned up and found their houses on fire and are just pointing at it saying, look, the Tories put the house on fire. They're not calling the fire brigade. They're not dousing the flames. In fact, they're pouring petrol onto the flames and continuing to point at it and saying, look what the Tories did a year ago. So there's no discernible plan here. If they'd come in on day one and had a plan, you would grant them a bit of time to allow the plan to bed in, right? You don't expect miracle results on day one, but I can't discern what the plan is. And it does seem like the UK's business model at the moment is to chase out all of our millionaires and billionaires, wave them goodbye as they go abroad, and welcome in vast numbers of people who aren't typically particularly productive in the economy and are often on welfare. That is the UK business model.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's going to work out. Yeah, I'm not sure it's going to work out well for us. Just finally, I must ask you, because you were at the Institute of Economic Affairs for a long time as well. And let's talk about inheritance tax. We're told on the front page of the Telegraph today that families face a fresh inheritance tax grab because of the current system. Parents can give money to their children in free gifts, basically untaxed gifts, and it's tapered in terms of the tax tax they pay depending on whether or not they survive the next 7 years or not. So it's within 3 years. If you give a gift, you might give early inheritance to your child. If you then die within the next 3 years, then it will be taxed at 40%, but it goes down to, I think, 8% before 7 years. And if you die after 7 years, there's no tax in it at all. The Treasury is looking at getting rid of that and saying, nope, we're going to tax you on every gift you ever give your child. How on earth do they do that?
It's crazy. It's, inheritance tax, in my view, is an incredibly mean-spirited tax. It hits people when they're obviously at a low ebb because they've typically lost a loved one, but it's also nearly impossible to enforce. I mean, imagine that you buy an expensive piece of jewellery and you claim to give it to your spouse, in which case there wouldn't be any inheritance tax on it, but you actually give it to your daughter. Yeah. Well, how is the tax man actually going to police that? How many times, might the richer, more senior member of the family pay for a restaurant meal out, 10 times a year? Is this all going to be logged? It is ludicrous. I mean, my preference would be to abolish inheritance tax. It is only about 1% of all tax receipts. Yeah.
And the very rich don't pay it.
Exactly. If you're a multi-millionaire, you can set up trusts and everything. Yeah. It basically hits the mildly affluent middle class.
Who've usually worked really darn hard for it and not unreasonably might want to help their kids in the future. Martin Edwards, so great to talk to you. Covered lots of ground there. Director of Popular Conservatism. Thank you. Claire Pearce will come back on any of that.
Love the contributory system for benefits. I think that would mean something, as it used to be.
Bit of workfare for you?
I love that idea. I absolutely do. And I'm going to be called all manner of names for suggesting that people actually need to go and work. Get up, get out.
I'm so in favour of the workfare, so in favour of that 100%. 10:48 is the time. One of my next guests after the break, former police officer Norman Brennan, would think that was a good idea. We're going to be talking to him about the latest police stories. Do stay tuned for that. This is Talk.
Shocking. It's disgusting. It's actually genuinely repulsive that something like this could happen. That just because of his troubled background, I mean, we've all got troubled backgrounds to a certain extent, but we don't go around manhandling or abusing women and wrecking their lives in the process. It's outrageous. And, we live in a country now, Jeremy, where a woman, a mother, is in jail and will be and has been for 31 months for writing something on social media. And this man did not spend 1 second in jail.
Plus, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back. This is Talk. 10:51 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Let's turn our attention to the latest policing stories now with Norman Brennan. He's a former police officer. A very good morning to you, Norman.
Yeah, good morning, Julia.
Thanks so much for joining us. Let's talk about this announcement that we've had that police will be the new guidelines are going to be that they should release the ethnicity and the nationality of suspects when there's a high-profile case, when there is concern about public disorder or community cohesion or whatever. Do you think that's the right decision, or should it always be information that is released?
Well, it's a difficult one, really, because under the Children and Young Persons Act, those under the age of 18 are deemed as children. And that is why children's names and details are never given.
Yeah, but you can still... But most suspects are not children. But even if it was a child, you can still give out information regarding ethnicity or nationality. It wouldn't identify them.
I don't see that being a problem at all. Unfortunately, when I was in the police, when I was on a robbery squad, predominantly the suspects that we were after, about 72% were young black males. Whoever were the suspect, be they black or white, we put out their description. Nowadays, since I've retired, the police rarely ever give any description out whatsoever. So I don't know how they can ask the public to help them if they saw anything when they're not giving the public the correct information.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting. Merseyside Police, when they decided to release within a very short space of time, within an hour, after we had a car plough into Liverpool fans in a parade, and they said the suspect who'd been arrested was a white British man who born in the local area, because I think everyone assumed, I think not unreasonably, and bearing in mind that is still a live case, obviously, so we don't want to prejudice any future proceedings, and charges have been brought. But I think people not unreasonably said, oh, this looks like the modus operandi of Islamist terrorism, because we've had cases where cars have appeared to plough into people, and it has been Islamist terrorist. So they chose to put that information out. But I think a lot of people felt that if it was the other way round, they wouldn't have put out that information. So it does seem to think, I think for most of us, think that they put out the information when it is someone, let's face it, who is in the white majority, and they don't put out the information when it is either a minority ethnic group or indeed particularly if it is someone who is Muslim or believed to be Muslim.
Well, I think Britain learnt a very tough lesson after the Southport stabbings. They kept it all quiet. And I was warning people on social media where I have a quite high profile, and I warn people, stop posting what you're posting, you're going to get nicked. Yeah. And they did. There were riots, hundreds of police were assaulted, mosques were nearly burned down. Yeah. So what the Home Secretary and the government have got to get is the balance right. Yeah. And I'd be quite honest with you, Julia, when I was in the police, rarely ever was I posting on children killing other children and adults.
Yeah, but that was a particular case where he was, Axel Rudiger-Barn at the time of the crimes was, I think, a week or two before his 18th birthday.
Yeah, no, the point I was making, Julie, was this, is that almost daily now I'm posting and reporting on children killing other children, stabbing and maiming other children. Yeah. Times have changed. And maybe it's time now for times to change to identify those that are committing the most horrific offences. Yeah. And even if it's to stop public disorder, that has to be a good thing.
Well, this is the thing. It's the idea that we're afraid of facts. All facts that can possibly be brought into the public domain, which are not going to prejudice a trial, should be brought into the public domain. We're constantly told we shouldn't know things like, for instance, the ethnicity or the nationality or national or immigration status of people who are committing crimes. But that information should be recorded. And in the case of, say, the grooming gangs, Baroness Louise Casey pointed out that, a third of cases, they didn't record the ethnicity. And you think, oh, come on, as I say, if you apply for a library card in the local council, you have to, they ask for your ethnicity. Of course they know. They know, well, IC1, IC2, IC3. They know perfectly well. But they're choosing not to give that information. The reason they're not going to give that information is because they think we're all horrible bigots and we're all going to go out and riot.
Well, times have changed, as I just said to you, and every time it's like I was one of the spokespersons, well, I was the spokesperson for James Bolger's mother, Denise Bolger, and of course Thompson and Venables. Their names were sort of kept away, but everybody within the community, Julia, knew exactly who they were. Social media now, you can post something on social media and it will be in Australia in 6 seconds. Yeah. So the identity is known by everybody except those in the government that actually duty is to reassure society. So I think that such details in this day and age should be given, but care must be also given to ensure that they're not attacked and that there's not public disorder.
Yes. What did you make of the Warwickshire police? Basically, they knew that the two men who'd been suspected and had been arrested for the alleged rape of a 12-year-old girl in Warwickshire, in Nuneaton, that they told local councillors, but the local reform leader of the council, he told the public, he said the public have a right to know that these people who are suspected of this crime, and again, it's a live case, are illegal migrants living in an asylum hotel. Did the public have a right to know that?
Well, I believe they should. People coming illegally into Britain, which I think is 50,000 under this government, hundreds have committed the most serious offences. There's been some murders, many rapes, children interfered with, and many serious crimes. In London, for example, 40% of all sex crimes are committed by illegal migrants.
No, not by illegal migrants. No. By migrants. This is a claim from Robert Jenrick, by foreign nationals.
Well, if you come into
but
this
not
country,
illegal
Julie,
migrants. No, but not illegal migrants, foreign nationals.
Well, if you come into, we may disagree on this. If you come into this country illegally, where you haven't come through the right chains, it's like if you fly into this country, we'll send a couple of typhoons up to detain you and you'll be arrested.
No, but that's a different. That's a completely different point, Norman. The figure you gave was incorrect. I was correcting that figure. Look, just finally, I've got like 1 minute left. I want to ask you this. We've been told by the Police and Crime Commissioner for Thames Valley, Matthew Barber, that it's wrong for people to think that tackling thieves, particularly shoplifters, is just a job for the police. And he says the public have a duty to stand up to shoplifters as well. He's saying not rugby tackling them, but standing up to them. Do you agree?
Well, everybody has a duty to protect society. However, we have a dangerous society nowadays. Yeah. I report a knife crime 24/7, serious crime. Shoplifting is out of control. And many of those that actually shoplift are carrying knives, weapons. They're under the influence of drugs and are more likely to harm you. And most shops have a policy, safety over stock, and that really should be the policy for the public unless you're in a position to do something.
Yeah, even the security guards, for goodness sake, don't tackle the shoplifters physically.
Train them, send them on police training courses, conflict resolution, self-defence, tell them the law, pay them the right money and equip them with quick cuffs. So anybody that goes shoplifting knows that there's a very well-trained security guard there that can detain you, deal with you, and put you in quick cuffs.
So we should give them tasers. Or here's an idea. Maybe the police could turn up and deal with it. There we are. Norman Bredon, great to talk to you, former police officer. Thank you very much. Claire Pearsall.
I think we need to get the police to come out to shoplifting offences, because if you stop people from doing that level of crime, hopefully they won't go on and commit anything worse.
My local street, I mean, they've got hours and hours. They had the doors closed because they know that's a shoplifting peak time, happy hour for shoplifters. Why is a police officer from the local station not patrolling that high street and can be there within a minute or 2 minutes if anyone reports crime? Would that not help? Would that not help the problem? I'm pretty sure it would, but no, they're too busy with their facial recognition cameras and arresting people for hurty tweets. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. This is Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Morning, welcome back to the show. It's coming up to 3 minutes past 11 o'clock. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. This is Talk, the home of common sense. I think we're all a bit delirious from the heat last night. Honestly, the one thing I will give the climate change fanatics is, yeah, it was a bit too hot. But wouldn't it be great if we had really cheap and affordable and reliable fossil fuels, not bothering with all this nonsense wind and solar? And we could rather usefully, and by the way, even with the solar power, even with the sun yesterday, we were not producing all of our electricity, let alone the other 80% of our energy needs are with solar power. And then we could all afford to have aircon, couldn't we? Then we'd all sleep just fine. I'm just throwing that out there. But anyway, lots to talk about today. Not all about the weather, I promise. Whether you're listening on DAB+ radio or on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or on your connected device, thank you so much for joining us. If you have just tuned in, love to know where you've been that's been better. You have missed any of the show, you can go to my YouTube page. We called it the Julia Hartley-Brewer Show. You've got no excuses for not finding it. If you hit subscribe on the YouTube page, you will never miss anything. Coming up in this hour, I'm going to be talking more about ministers trying to dodge the blame yesterday after the number of illegal channel migrants coming to Britain under Labour passed 50,000. Former Labour Home Secretary, it's now Education Minister Jackie Smith, blamed the Tories, claiming what is happening as a result of the last government. Is it, Jackie? Is it? The US government also has accused the UK of having significant human rights issues, including restrictions on free speech. It says human rights in the UK worsened in 2024 with credible reports of serious restrictions on freedom of expression, as well as crimes, violence or threats of violence motivated by anti-Semitism. I would say America also needs to look at itself on such issues. Have you been to a university campus in America lately, I would suggest? Talking of foreign affairs, though, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has said Kyiv would reject any Russian proposal to give up the Donbas region in the east of the country in exchange for a ceasefire, warning it could be used as a springboard for future attacks. And he's wrong about that. It will be used as a springboard for future attacks by Russia. It's very interesting today. Meetings are going on between lots of the European leaders and Zelensky ahead of that Alaska summit on Friday between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, which Donald Trump now says is a listening exercise. I'm not quite sure we need to listen to any more of Putin's abject nonsense and lies, but there we are. And in a Sun exclusive, an illegal migrant boasted on TikTok of crossing the channel by dinghy, saying, "Tell your friends to come." The illegal migrant racked up nearly 1 million views with a step-by-step guide to crossing the channel on a small boat, told others to follow him as he revelled in his taxpayer-funded 4-star asylum hotel. Lovely views from the windows and the like. We're going to be talking to the Sun reporter who got that exclusive later in this hour live in the studio. Do stay tuned for that. Delighted to say also Claire Pearsall is still here, former Conservative government advisor. She worked in the Home Office, but it wasn't her fault either. It's no one's fault, was it? No one's fault. Morning to you, Claire.
Morning.
Thank you for joining us. Now, I want to hear your thoughts on a couple of the biggest stories of the day, but as you always know, you can put your calls in on whatever you darn well choose. You're in charge of that. But I particularly want to hear about who do you blame for the 50,000 channel migrants coming to Britain since Labour got into power. Is the former Home Secretary Jackie Smith, now Baroness Smith, correct to say that actually, it was the Tories, they're the ones who got this all embedded, they're the ones that led to these record numbers, or is it Labour to blame, or is it the civil servants, is it who is it to blame and why? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Plus, with 1 million more people claiming jobless benefits, claiming universal credit in Britain since Labour came to power, so in just a year, what on earth is going on? What is your reaction to that? What should we do about it? Do you agree with a number of my guests this morning suggesting we need to have workfare? If you want to have your benefits, you have got to turn up and do a job of some sort, helping your local community. Otherwise, you don't get a penny. Wouldn't that sort things out pretty quickly? Because at this rate, the number of people more increasingly on benefits, 8 million people claiming universal credit. We've got fewer and fewer people of working age, more and more pensioners, not enough kids being born. At this rate, there's going to be 4 people left paying all the taxes. You just don't want to be one of them. That's all I can say. But I want to hear your reaction to all of those stories. Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. You can text the word talk and your message to 87222. You can get in touch on X at Talk TV. You can also send us a WhatsApp as well on that same telephone number. Calls are charged at the national rate. Text cost £1, standard network rate message. Right, let's get started. Let's go through some of the big stories once again with Claire Pissell. I mean, I have to say, we've just been talking about the police stories, but let's focus on, which is still also a police story, really, the Channel migrants arriving at record speed. Who do you blame? Now it's 50,000 who've come since Labour came to power last July.
Well, since Labour came to power, so I blame the Labour Party and the Labour government. But previously, the Conservative administration has quite a lot of blood in its hands for this, but also going back as far as Tony Blair and his open borders plan.
Yeah,
so
thanks for that, Tony.
There are no clean hands when it comes to migration in this country.
There really aren't, are there? And again, also, even the people out of power, the Lib Dems, the Greens, go, come on in. Human rights, this, human rights, that. The only person I'd say who's not to blame, genuinely, is the Reform Party, is Nigel Farage, who flagged up all this years ago. There he is. On the cliffs of Dover, pointing to all the migrant boats. He was out there focusing on it, and everyone to his left was basically saying, "Oh, you horrible bigot, you horrible bigot. These are desperate migrants fleeing." Let me check my notes. France, where I'm going on Friday.
And it's interesting that you bring up the Green Party. So they put themselves as the moral arbiter of absolutely everything. And they think that people should be able to come here because of the climate emergency the country of origin, but then tell us that we also have a climate emergency in this country. So, I mean, if they want to send me somewhere else, please.
I would like to be sent, yes, because of the climate emergency, I would like to be sent to the Bahamas, please.
Absolutely.
That would work for me. Well, I was pointing out earlier, and I'll point it out again, because we had, legal migrant live streaming his step-by-step Channel crossing, and what a surprise, people going, I think I'll come. Front page of pretty much every paper today, but I'll give you the Times. The Channel boat migrants arriving at record speed. I'm holding up the picture for those of you who are listening and not watching. There's a photograph of a load of people in Calais running off the beaches into the water to go and get onto a boat. Some other photographers ahead of them, so they're a bit rubbish at running photography with all that equipment, doing better. I've got to be honest with you, they don't look like women and children to me, as the Treasury Minister said a little while ago. They're mostly women and children. Unless women and children have all got beards, I'm pretty sure they're not women and children. They look like young men. They look like men of fighting age. I mean, it looks to me like an invasion. If I was sitting on a beach and I saw a whole load of those men turning up, I would think it was an invasion. Oh, because that's what it is when 50,000, mostly young men from foreign countries, come to our country. Now, the interesting thing here is that if at the next general election, Nigel Farage and Reform, or the Tories, they chose to do it, but Nigel Farage, maybe he got in a lot of trouble during the referendum. Was it during the referendum? Wasn't it? During the referendum. And he had a picture of the Leave.eu. They had a photograph on a poster of the migrants who in 2015 were just streaming across Europe. Remember those extraordinary scenes, basically saying, "Oh, this was very racist," despite the fact they were people who, looked fairly pale-skinned to me. He chose a typical photograph that had been on front pages in the newspapers, but he was called a bigot. Nigel Farage puts this picture onto a placard, onto an advert, on a billboard, in the next election, he will be accused of being a bigot. But it would be totally legitimate. This is literally what's happening, isn't it?
Absolutely. But what Nigel Farage also needs to do is give us what he would do about it. Now, this is what's frustrating about the argument.
Wait a minute, we're going to do something about it.
Hello, Keir Starmer.
Why you actually have to think of that before?
I mean, it's a novel idea to actually have a plan, and I think that if Reform are serious about forming the next government, and all the polling shows that they have the support, then they need to come up with a set of plans that would actually...
And a proper plan.
Yeah, a proper plan that would hold up to scrutiny and not be embarrassed by it.
OK, leaving the ECHR, leaving the European Court of Human Rights, Convention or whatever, that's not going to be enough. No. It's necessary but not sufficient.
Precisely.
You need to do that because you're never going to get out of it otherwise. But you're going to have to give completely different guidance, I would say, up through an Act of Parliament to the tribunals to tell them no. You have to look at you have to look at the second paragraph of Article 8, right to private life, and actually look up the benefit to British society of someone staying in this country. I believe where there's a will, there is a way. I thought the last government vaguely had a bit of a will near the end. This government definitely don't have a will at all. No. They definitely don't have a way. They said they would smash the gangs. The actual arrests of people involved in people smuggling has actually gone down in the last year rather than up, which I think is a rather telling statistic, is it not?
Well, of course. Who would have thought that criminals would hide their identity, would be housed overseas, be out of the jurisdiction of the UK courts? I mean, who would have thought that they could do that?
Never.
Keir Starmer believed that he could sort of freeze all their assets because they'll have a high street branch of the bank and a bank card in their name.
Of course they will. I mean, it's just mad,
doesn't work, does it?
It's just mad. But the thing is, no wonder we can't deal with that, because we can't stop. Two jobs, literally the two jobs of a government. The first two jobs: one, protect the borders. Can't do that. Two, to maintain law and order in the streets. We definitely don't have that. That feeling that people have is very, very real. It's not because we're making it up. We are genuinely aware of just the lack of law and order on our streets, the litter, the mayhem, the shoplifting, the beggars, the rough sleeping, the drugs, the zooming e-scooters all over the pavement, the general behaviour of people in public. Again, I don't believe in capital punishment for murder or rape or anything, but absolutely the death penalty for people who talk on their phones very loudly in public, particularly if they're doing the video FaceTiming. FaceTiming, I think FaceTiming on public transport should be a capital crime. I will hold that view until the day I die. But we know about this. But the police are expanding use of facial recognition vans. I was saying to you earlier, I was on Oxford Street yesterday, our premier shopping street in the country, apparently. Not anymore. I mean, most of the big stores, the House of Fraser and everything, they've all gone. They've got John Lewis, that's the one everyone sleeps outside, in their brand new newly stolen white duvets. I kid you not, every night. But there were 9 police officers around a facial recognition van, big signs, flashing lights, very clear, big signs up. They have to do that, for GDPR and human rights reasons. 9 coppers in full uniform. And when I spoke to them, they told me that they'd been there 3.5 hours, and in 3.5 hours they had dealt with, in their words, 2 people. And I said, oh, so arrested? No, they had not arrested anybody. They had dealt with 2 people. We've yet to ascertain what that meant, but they were going to be there another, basically 4.5 hours. So I'm obviously going to contact the local police station to find out how many people they did deal with / arrest. But is that a good use of police resources? You worked in the Home Office for many years. They say that use of facial recognition, they can find people who are wanted on court warrants and the like. Would those people see that van and think, oh, I might not walk down that street? I'm going to go out on a limb here. Yeah, they're going to avoid the area like the plague. I think that it does have a part to play, but it doesn't require just sort of one stationary van and 8 officers. Surely the whole point of having this... across the road as well. And so 9. So how about, you've got this technology. You don't need people standing there having a look about. When they really weren't. They were having a chat to each other. Looking about. So surely the whole point is that if you see somebody in a crowd, the cameras can spot that person, and then that alert can be sent to a police officer in the area. Yeah, it does seem to me to be a very poor use of resources. They claim it. But also, of course, we do have the issue of people's, freedom. Now, I know Big Brother Watch and others are very concerned about this camera recognition use, but we are on CCTV all the time. Apart from if you do have as I had a bag stolen last year, I know I'm bored on about it. No CCTV in an area where there's loads of thefts. No CCTV there. Like, amazing. Wouldn't that? I don't know. I'm thinking maybe a place should put the CCTV. I'm just throwing that out there. But it does seem utterly bizarre that you are basically. They say they throw the information away once they scan it. Yeah. But law-abiding members of the public are being scanned. Are you any more concerned about being, a police officer in real life standing there, seeing if they recognise somebody? Of course, the AI technology can recognise and scan faces and things much more efficiently. Is that any more sinister, if sinister at all? Because Big Brother Watch and others say it's very worrying, and it's our data, it's our privacy, and they're knowing where we are and what we're doing, and they've got no sodding right knowing what law-abiding citizens are doing. And I read things that Big Brother Watch put out because it is quite interesting to get that side of the argument, but I'm still of the view that we give all of the information that we have anyway. If you have a driving licence, if you have a passport, if you have a Tesco Club card, but police aren't allowed to just ask for my monies as opposed to digital ID. Yeah. Police officers are not allowed to ask for my ID. me. Police officer says, I want to know who you are, show me ID. You have a right to say no. And what crime do you think I'm suspected of? Why are you questioning me?
And I think this is the worry, isn't it? There's going to be this massive overstep. You have all of this technology, you have all of this capacity to store facial details. What's to stop that then being abused in the other...
Or leaked somewhere.
Or sold to the highest bidder.
Because
that's my concern.
They've been so secure so far. I mean, even the banks can't keep our data secure.
No.
I mean, that's the thing, isn't it?
But
also, we were told CCTV was going to be, that was going to be solving crime. We have rising crime. We have higher crime levels than many other equivalent countries. We've got more cameras than China, which is a police state, and Singapore.
Yes.
Now, I'm sorry. If CCTV hasn't, I know it's a different kind of thing, but it only works if you follow it up, and if the CCTV is good enough quality. I'm not convinced we are going to see the crackdown on crime that they claim this will lead to, and crackdown on criminals. And whether that is is worth the exchange of our personal liberty and freedom, and not to be spied on by the state. Having been spied on by the state during lockdown, and my information being handed to an counter-terror group in the United States, formerly by my own government when I was doing nothing illegal. Sorry, I no longer trust the state. I think I was probably foolish to trust them in the first place.
And that is your real problem. But also, if there is no deterrent to a criminal, as in being arrested, being charged, put in prison, then it doesn't really matter, and they can roam around in 30-degree heat with their face covered and their hood up and a black tracksuit, and nobody will get
Amazing how many young men on my public transport home seem to be terribly concerned about COVID. Yes, they don't feel the heat. It's 30 degrees, 30 plus on the tube, but they're wearing a puffer jacket and a mask, looking totally unsuspicious whatsoever. But if you did question that, why are you racist? Because that's always you know what it is. But but no, just wondering whether you're feeling the heat or not, and what your face looks like. Let's talk about jobless benefits claimants. Up by 1 million. I genuinely was given these stats when we were in the last half hour of the show yesterday, and part of me was like, I think they've got this wrong. They must have printed out the wrong headline. Jobless benefits claimants up by 1 million since Labour came to power. In 1 year, up 1 million. A record 8 million people are now on universal credit, and nearly half of them, 3.7 million, there is no requirement for them to look for work. They've been written off, and even the ones who are required to look for work, you're basically looking at about 2.5 million people who, they're planning for work, preparing for work, searching for work. It doesn't look very convincing to me.
What is planning for work?
I know.
Planning for work means
putting together a CV. Yeah, you're unemployed. You should have all, apply for
getting
a job.
Up, showered, dressed, out the house, down to the train station. That's my planning for work in the morning.
Buying an alarm clock.
That would be nice. Everybody has one on their mobile phone, so I don't buy any of this I can't get up in time. But also, when you're looking at the younger generations who are in these numbers, what have they been taught by their parents? And I know we always go on about this.
We do our middle-aged mum thing, but we're right.
Yes, we absolutely
Your child isn't a sort of law-abiding, contributing member of society. I think that's on you.
It absolutely is. My child has been hoofing around bales of hay over the last couple of days to earn
That's
some
technical
money.
farming term.
It is very technical, but to earn some cash. Because it's the summer holidays.
Good.
And the same as your daughter has worked her entire way through her school life, because when she's been old enough to do so, because she wants some extra money to be able to go out. And it's also
washing up and things like that. I'm not too proud to do any job, quite rightly.
And we've all done jobs that we don't particularly like, but the fact is you have to do them. And it also gives you a good grounding.
No, you don't. Lots of parents just give their kids money and they think they're doing them a favour and they're being really nice. So these are the people who call their daughters princess.
Yes.
Do not call your child princess. She's not a princess. Telling her she is a really bad idea. Or if you're Katie, whatever, which one? Katie Price. Actually naming your child princess. Not a healthy thing to do. I genuinely think this is just so busy. But as we were talking to a guest earlier on the show, it does seem to me that, that a lot of people just think, well, I don't see why I should work. There's a real attitude, and especially a lot of young people who come out of, let's face it, second-rate unis with third-rate degrees and 50 grand's worth of debt, who go, well, why should I do a job, working in a coffee bar or washing up or anything else. Why should I? I've got a degree. Yeah. But actually, lots of people with good degrees do actually do those jobs, and they're proud of it. But also, there are plenty of jobs you've got to start at the bottom. You've got to work your way up. It's like the young people you meet who say, "Oh, I want to do your job." Oh, yeah. Well, so did I want to do my job. It didn't occur to me I'd do this job years back. But you know, I didn't just walk in one day and say, "I think I'd like my own radio show." I mean,
nice?
Exactly. And I was working in a basement office in Bethnal Green on my local newspaper, on £9,000 a year, and I've done my time. But it's just lots of people just simply don't think that they need to do their time.
And I was talking to a friend of mine. I travel in on the train with her. She's a police officer, and we were talking about what jobs we had as kids, because our children are coming to certain ages, and it was really interesting. She worked in a shop. A friend of hers worked on the fish counter of the local supermarket. I've worked in a library. I
chopped onions and garlic all day on a Saturday for about 2 years.
And you just get up and you do it, and you learn how to deal with the public, you learn how to deal with a boss, you learn how to deal with other people. And you don't like it, but do you know what? At the end of the day, you've got some cash in your pocket.
I actually really quite enjoyed a lot of those jobs. I think, but again, then you get, okay, this links in. Under 22 should get free bus travel. The Transport Committee, MPs and the Transport Committee have said, they're telling the government, because we'll get people used to using buses. And they're like, now in lots of parts of the country that you get a discount or children are free, and parts of England and Wales. And there are different rules everywhere. In London, they're getting discount travel. And if it was up to me, I'm absolutely serious, I would ban under 22s from the bus. Every time I've been on a bus, the people causing the trouble are youngsters. Leave the buses to the adults who've paid full fare, and of course the pensioners. I do resent the fact that my parents, who do not need any financial help, thank you very much, get free bus travel. That really pees me off, I've got to be honest with you.
It does. I mean, I grew up in an area with no buses. I now live back in the area of no buses. So my child is not going to have that choice. But he's going to have to walk somewhere if he wants to get to a job. And that's
why
fine.
should under 22s get free bus travel?
They shouldn't. They absolutely shouldn't. I don't have an issue with when you're under 16 having half price.
That's to benefit the parents.
Precisely, but I don't have a problem with that. What I have a problem with is giving everything to a group of people who aren't actually going to give anything back.
Or they can't afford the £3 bus fare. It's like, oh, but you can afford... I see you walking along with your free coffee, with your £4 coffee from Starbucks. You've got your eyelashes done, got your nails done. The guys have got, designer trainers on. Everyone's got a fake tan. Oh, but I can't afford my bus fare. Oh, do me a favour. There is endless Auntie Julia and Auntie Claire's rant about the world. Love to hear your thoughts on all of these stories. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. We'll get your calls up next. This is Talk.
Yes, I am. And I'm going to put another one up 5 times the size.
Oh, I like the sound of him.
He's good. He's good. And, you can predict the story, can't you? He's been a victim of shoplifting 5 times so far this year. And how many police turned up to help him? It's excruciatingly bad judgment.
UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk. Welcome back to the show. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. It's 11:27. Coming up in the next half hour, we're going to be talking to the news reporter at The Sun who got the exclusive, their front page today, about the illegal migrant live streaming on TikTok. His trip to the UK, saying, hey, come and join us in his 4-star, I kid you not, 4-star asylum hotel. Also going to be talking to the chairman of Republicans overseas about that Trump meeting with Vladimir Putin up next. First up, though, let's get to your calls coming in thick and fast on all the topics we're talking about today. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Let's get your texts in actually quickly first. Joseph says, and I ask about benefits and more and more people claiming benefits in this country. Joseph says, no wonder they've wrecked the economy and the job market. James says, I've been struggling to get back into work now for 3 months. I'm well educated, very experienced. People always forget the entire recruitment industry is also failing job seekers. They don't want to help people. Eva says there are less full-time jobs for Britons and many jobs pay so little. Universal credit must top up wages so that people don't starve. 50% of Tesco employees fall into this category. My guess is, though, that's because they keep them on a limited number of hours, knowing that they can boost their money with those benefits, and then they don't have to pay full holiday pay and full sick pay. It's a scam. It's a scam when it's all being paid for by taxpayers. Shouldn't be allowed. Timothy says, as a 50-plus-year-old looking for a new job, it's impossible to end up on universal credit despite being willing and able to work. And Benedict says, lockdown is one of the largest factors to have caused an already big mess into a bigger one. People were paid to stay home, work lost importance, and the state became the comfort blanket. Lockdowns changed the relationship between the state and its people. Lots of messages also coming in on migrants. We'll get to some of those next hour. Right now, let's get to the calls. I say John is in the Dordogne. John wants to talk to us about migration, being a migrant in France. A very good morning to you, John.
No, it's not correct.
You're on holiday.
I am a resident.
A resident, okay.
I'm a resident.
All right. Anyway, I was asking earlier,
Right,
who do you blame?
Everybody and anybody who's been in the Home Office, the Conservative Party, the Labour Party, the Liberal Party in the last 30 years, and anybody who advised them, hint, who doesn't agree with young Daniel from Epsom yesterday.
I can't remember. What did he say?
Oh, he said everything. He said, get out there on the boat, get out there.
Oh, that, yes. I'm trying to remember, yeah.
Your Conservative lady there,
Claire.
I used to be a Tory, what does she think about what she told Boris Johnson and David Cameron?
OK, she was an advisor to the Home Office. Just to collect Claire, when you were in the Home Office, this wasn't such a big issue, but presumably, I mean, you've been sane on your views. What were you telling your minister?
That we had to look at it. It came a problem when we had 200 people coming across on a boat. So that was the maximum that we had.
Claire.
Pardon?
Claire, people like me were called very nasty names by people like you.
No, but not her.
They did. Yes, they did. We used to support other political parties who wanted no immigration, right? None, and all the Tories like her would call us racist with nasty names, who's been proved right? Us?
Well, yeah, us. But John, you say you're a resident in France now. That's great, but you still migrated to France. So you're talking about you want no immigration to the UK at all, but you've emigrated to France.
I don't rate people. I've stuck £600,000 or £700,000 into a property in France. I pay my taxes in France.
Yeah, no, I've not got any problem with that. And if the French want to have you, that's fine. But you said you were opposed to all immigration.
No.
That's what you said.
No. I'm talking about people who are coming into the UK on boats.
You're talking about illegal immigration. Well, we're all supposed to be opposed to illegal immigration. That's why we've got laws. But you basically say you blame pretty much everyone vaguely involved in politics or the government for the last 30 years. I think I'm with you on that.
Good.
Right then, we'll end it then. John, you get back to the sunshine. Thank you for that. I've got to squeeze in another call before we go to the break. Paddy is in Hampshire. Paddy wants to have his say on benefits, given that we've seen that 1 million increase in the number of people claiming universal credit in the last year alone. Paddy, what do you want to say?
Well, good morning, Julia. I joined the the great unwashed who take benefits, in July of 23, after being attacked at work in December of 22, and left with a neurological disorder. So I blank out. My body doesn't function as it should.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine. But I managed to move into a flat which is for over 60s veterans, because I served a long time in the army, and I couldn't afford the rent, so I went to the benefits people, and they picked up my rent straight away. They gave me some money, and then based on my diagnosis, I was given PIP. I can't work at all. I've tried. I've even gone to job interviews and then never heard a word. Now, I am now 65 and three quarters, as it were. I need a walking stick. I often look glazed because what happens to me. So I'm probably not an ideal candidate for work. But while I was driving the bus, and I drove buses for 6 years, and that's where I was attacked at work, the amount of young people with disabled bus passes to start with. Now, I've got myself, because all my driving licences were revoked because of my condition. I'll never be able to drive again. And then you'd see them walking up and down the high street near the bus station with cans of cider in their hand, effing and blinding, shouting, and they've all got anxiety and the other one. And I've heard them talk on the bus. All you've got to say is X, Y, Z, and your doc will sign that little box on the form. Your doctor will sign it, and you're good to go. You can claim anything.
But it's so obvious to all of the rest of us. And there will be some people who are genuine. Of course there are. And we want to help those people. But exactly, why do the people, why do the doctors sign them off? Why do the benefits people sign them off? And again, because we'd be able to give you more help who needs it if we didn't have to pay for all of them.
Well, the thing is, they're so abrupt. They're so firm when they get in front of these doctors. And I think sometimes the easiest thing to do is just tick the box. I remember 3 years ago, I took a friend of mine for a PIP interview. They were going for a level of PIP. And I drove them, it's about 18 miles to this little place where it was. And they asked me to go in as their kind of support. And my friend put on a show. It was Oscar-worthy, dripping in tears and being done. It was so painful. And she was rejected. And then appealed it, and then got it. When I had my PIP, they phoned me up. They sent me a letter saying what they wanted, so I got all my diagnoses out because everything's done. I've had a million MRIs and all the rest of it. So I put it all down, and the guy spoke to me for about 3 minutes. I answered his questions based on the form. He asked me for the layout of my flat, and then
you got your benefits.
Yeah, within a week I got. And
we want people who need it to get it. And again, we have to have an appeal system. But I think you should say a lot of people are just playing the system, and there's no shame in it. They're open about it. I'll have to leave it there. But thank you so much for your call. I hope you look after yourself, Paddy in Hampshire. There, it's coming up to 11:35. Up next, going to talk to Greg Swenson from Republicans Overseas about where we are with that Trump meeting with Vladimir Putin. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk. Thank you very much, Steve, for your company. 11:36 is the time. Let's talk to our next guest now, Chairman of Republicans Overseas, Greg Swenson. A very good morning to you.
Good morning, Julia.
Thank you very much, Steve, for joining us. I want to talk first about your president, then we'll talk about your vice president currently in the UK and some accusations about the UK's human rights status and issues right now, Greg. So lots to cover. But let's talk about this meeting Donald Trump is having with the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin, in Alaska on Friday, which they've decided not to invite Zelensky to. It's supposed to be a sort of ceasefire talks, a peace summit. But the president has now said that this is a listening exercise. He wants to listen to what Putin has to say. What more do we need to hear from Vladimir Putin about what he wants from Ukraine than we don't already know?
I think it's a bit of an exploration mission, as you pointed out, Julia. I think so. I'm not sure what to expect. I'm not sure the president knows what to expect, but anything's better than body bags piling up, is the view of this president. He's, as you know, he's very much an anti-war president. He's settled, 4 or 5 conflicts around the world in just his first 6 months in office. And he's going to give it a try. He's been trying. He's frustrated, as he's also said several times. He's definitely frustrated with Putin. I think the tariff or the sanctions threat probably worked, at least so far. That's why, remember, Putin didn't show up in Istanbul. He's fired missiles into Kyiv every time, often after conversations with the president or with Steve Witkoff, the special envoy. And so, I think President Trump is frustrated on one hand, but he doesn't want to just walk away because.
Well, he doesn't have to walk away. What he could do is exact opposite. That's what Putin wants him to do, is be frustrated and walk away, and then not actually do anything to push Vladimir Putin, because there was some hope in the last month that he sort of hardened up some of his talk about Vladimir Putin. He seemed to have realised that he's being taken for a fool and treated as a bit of a chump by Vladimir Putin. The rest of the world is watching on. That, funnily enough, you can't trust what Putin has to say, and he's not the victim in this, he's the aggressor. There was some hope, but then he seemed to soften his words yet again. Now, I realise that, Ukraine is not the biggest single issue in the world, certainly not for America. They're more concerned about China, so they're more concerned about bringing Russia in from the Cold War. There's lots of other realpolitik, geopolitics being played out here, more than just, the Ukrainian people. But it does seem to me extraordinary that he wants to hold sort of ceasefire talks with Vladimir Putin about Ukraine without even involving the president of Ukraine.
Well, I think he's involving the president of Ukraine. Ukraine doesn't think it's productive to have him at this talk at this time because, again, he's just scratching the surface. We all agree that Putin is the wild card here. Putin is the loose cannon.
I don't think Donald Trump does agree with that.
Oh, no,
Donald Trump has talked about him being the victim.
No,
he's blamed Ukraine for the invasion.
There's moments where he, wanted to bring in some sort of, I wouldn't call it common sense, but just sort of some understanding, trying to put yourself in Putin's shoes and understand that Ukraine is not perfect here. That's not.
Ukraine doesn't have to be perfect. America's not perfect, but it doesn't give Russia the right to invade it.
Julia, what I'm getting at is that to look at different angles is probably productive, again, when body bags are piling up, right? If we could just go in and snap our fingers and end this thing, we would. And I think the American people are on the side of Ukraine, that's for sure. But they also understand that Russia has 4,500 nuclear warheads and that this guy's a loose cannon. So, not much different than North Korea and China. You're dealing with, unusual leaders.
Yeah, but Putin's not a madman. Putin is not a madman. He's not one of the. He's not an Iranian Ayatollah. Putin is very, very rational, and what he knows is he can get away with invading Ukraine because if America isn't going to basically provide full air cover and absolutely come to Ukraine's aid and allow NATO to come to Ukraine, then he can get away with it. In terms of the territory, Zelensky's made it very clear he's not willing to give up the Donbass region to Vladimir Putin because he knows perfectly well it'd be the staging ground for the next level of the invasion. This is what people in Poland understand, what the Baltic states understand, what Britain understands, Germany understands, and others. That's the reality. But Donald Trump doesn't seem to understand that.
Oh, no, he does understand. Absolutely, he does. But he also understands that the Europeans have provided financial support, but no one has volunteered to go in and actually defend Ukraine with boots on the ground.
Well, the Ukrainians say we don't need that. We've got enough men to do that. What we need is the firepower and the air power.
They love the proxy wars, where so Ukrainians will die, Russians will die, but not anybody.
Who loves the proxy wars? I don't want there to be war, but there's a really simple way for there not to be a war in Ukraine, and that is for America leading NATO to say, Vladimir Putin, your forces will be out of this country. This is the end. At some point, we're going to have to confront Putin.
Julia, as sad as it is, that might be the outcome here. The president is completely fine with supporting indirectly. Like, the U.S. will provide the weapons and the munitions at great risk to our own military supplies and our own military capabilities. The Europeans, at least so far, are happy to pay for it, or at least they say they are. NATO is going to be much stronger because of Ukraine, but also because of the president and what he's been saying since 2018, that NATO is basically a joke, and they're not.
And Europe needs to step up and pay for its own defense. I've always agreed with that.
This can end up escalating the war, more body bags, more weapons from the U.S. indirectly, sold through NATO, paid for by the Europeans, UK taxpayers. That could be the outcome.
That could well be the outcome. But the alternative outcome is that Russia just sits back for a couple of years and then goes again and then exits the Baltics and then it's a NATO nation. Are we going to, there is no good outcome here other than Putin being faced down. He's going to be faced. We have to face him down at some point. I would suggest Friday would be the day to do it. Let's talk about let's talk about the vice president though. JD Vance currently on a holiday in the Cotswolds. Personally, I think the Cotswolds are very lovely. I'm not sure that's where I would choose to go on holiday if I was technically the second most powerful man in the world. He was meeting Nigel Farage for breakfast this morning. Apparently having a barbecue and a few beers with Tom Skinner, Tom Skinner, made famous from the Apprentice. But he's also faced a lot of locals, including apparently Jeremy Clarkson, unhappy about the road closures and the security and all of that. But he's spoken many times in public about his concerns about freedom of speech in the UK and human rights issues. And now we've had a formal accusation from the US State Department accusing the UK of having significant human rights issues, including restrictions on free speech. And this is a new version of the annual Human Rights Practices Report. And it says human rights in the UK worsened in 2024 with credible reports of serious restrictions on freedom of expression as well as crimes, violence or threats of violence motivated by anti-Semitism since the October 7th Hamas attack. What do you make of this?
Well, he's got a point. And so, or the State Department has a point. So, look, I think JD Vance likes the UK, just like the president likes the UK. He's very fond of the UK, especially of Scotland, but I think the entire UK. That was pretty clear in the first term. I think JD Vance, like the president, is concerned about some problems in the UK right now and considers the UK a great friend of America and also a great friend personally. I mean, so he even in Munich, when he first started that criticism, he referred to the UK as our friend. And so you never want to see a friend make a mistake. I can understand that. I've lived in the UK for 10 years. I really love the place, but I see what's happening there. I see what's going on with free speech. I see what's going on with the unrestricted illegal migration. And it's painful to watch. It wouldn't bother me as much if it was somewhere I hadn't lived and somewhere.
Yeah, because you feel the affinity with this nation, and we feel the affinity with you, Greg. We're very happy to have you. But this is the thing: we don't have the First Amendment in this country, and so when we have, for instance, restrictions on people's expressions on social media, which many of us are very unhappy about, but also restrictions preventing contempt of court, so not discussing a court case when it's pending, so that the jury can make their free decision without people affecting their views as online. You guys consider that a terrible affront to democracy. Now, personally, I'm a very big fan of those contempt of court rules, as long as we are able to speak freely afterwards. But there is no doubt at all we are seeing massive attacks on our rights as free speech. We've got the Online Safety Act. But is the concern from the Americans about British people's freedom of speech and a fellow democracy, the motherland, if you will, or is it actually all about we need to protect our mates who all came to the inauguration and are multi-billionaires who run big California-based tech companies and they don't like it because they might get fined?
Yeah, I suppose that would be the cynical view, but it's not. It's not the case, right? I mean, people have been making donations forever, and the Democrats, by the way, had 2 times the contributions and from the same.
Oh, you're all as bad as each other on the donations front.
Yeah. And so, look, the president and the vice president are strong believers in free speech. They are frustrated by what's happening in the UK because the UK is their closest friend, their closest ally. I mean, it makes sense, right? I don't think they would care that much if it was some off-the-run country that no one had ever heard of. So they are, they actually have a real fondness for the UK.
Well, so if they can help maintain our freedom of speech or get it back, then will be very happy. Greg Swenson, the Chairman of Republicans Overseas, thank you very much indeed. Claire Pearsall, former Conservative government advisor, no doubt at all, the attack on free speech is very real in this country.
It is, and it is getting quite concerning, but I also don't think we need a lecture from J.D. Vance, who took great exception to a meme going round about himself and has sent off the State Department in the Cotswolds to go knock on the doors of all of the neighbours and ask for their details and their social media presence, and they have turned around and said no. Because I think that free speech has to work all ways, so you can't have a go at our country.
But also, isn't a lot of this about protecting their, their tech bros in the social media who are giving them money now and attended the inauguration?
Absolutely is.
Because we're looking at huge fines.
Yeah, they're going to look at. They don't want their friends, their business associates, and their backers to be poorer.
Exactly. I want freedom of speech to be protected because it's a vital component of democracy. Different reason, not being given donations, but there we are. 11:47 is the time. We're going to take a quick break. Up next, we'll be talking to news reporter at The Sun, Thomas Godfrey, who's exposed the illegal migrant coming across to this country, live streaming on TikTok his journey and telling his, the 1 million people who've viewed his TikTok, come over here. Here's my lovely 4-star hotel. No wonder they're coming in their droves. We'll talk to him up next. This is Talk.
So in order to deport asylum seekers without allowing them to claim asylum, which was what the Tories want to do and which was deemed to be illegal, you would have to leave the ECHR.
Correct.
The ECHR is a piece of legislation that underpins, for example, the Good Friday Agreement in Northern Ireland. So if you were to pull out of that international agreement, you are putting lives in danger in Northern Ireland. That's certainly not something I'd want to do.
That's not quite true, is
not
it?
something I'd want to see.
That's not quite true, because you can guard against that by providing domestic legislation that would run in parallel with what is already there.
Hey, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. 11:51 is the time. We've been talking this lot this morning about the 50,000 channel migrant mark that was passed. Well, officially, the figures said yesterday, it was already on Monday. It'll already be well over that. That's in just 1 year and a bit since Keir Starmer came to power. But among those migrants who's arrived was one who arrived just at the weekend, when presumably he has been detained and already deported, apart from that, as part of that 1 in, 1 out rule that we were told so much about last week. Or maybe not. Maybe he's sitting in a 4-star hotel. Well, he probably is. And the reason we know that is because he's put it out on TikTok. Let's talk about this with news reporter at The Sun, Thomas Godfrey, who's got the front page of that newspaper today, talking about one particular asylum seeker, illegal boat migrant, who's done just that. Good morning to you, Thomas.
Good morning, Julia.
Thanks again. Now, it's front page, this guy on TikTok live streaming his journey. Tell us what we know about him and tell us what he's put online and what the impact has been.
Yeah, it really sort of beggars belief, the fact that someone can
come across the channel, and this man known as Alexandra420 on TikTok, he's an influencer. He had 70,000 followers, which is not an insignificant number of fans following your work online. You can see him swinging around on his chair there in his hotel room, and that was the culmination, the grand finale, if you like, to 8 different TikTok videos that racked up nearly 900,000 views on social media, detailing every step of his journey across the channel. It was, in effect, an advert for coming across. He started in Calais. He left Calais at about 4 o'clock in the morning on Saturday, was picked up by the British Border Force, taken into Manston in Kent, where he was processed, and then sent on to the Crown Plaza Hotel in West Drayton, where, as far as we know, he still is today. And of course, we know all of this because it is effectively his step-by-step guide coming across. You can see there.
We've got more information. We've got more information from his own TikTok than we'd be given by the authorities themselves about these people.
Well, precisely. And the fact is that this man's real identity still remains a mystery. Obviously, we're assuming his name isn't Alexandra, as he goes by on TikTok. But what really fascinated me is that at the moment he arrived into Britain, he did actually make a change to his TikTok profile. He added the British flag to his bio.
That was nice. We appreciate that. It's virtually British then. Virtually British. But the interesting thing is, I mean, one of those bits of footage that we've just shown for those who were watching, as opposed to just listening, he actually did a Q&A, a live question and answer session online about his journey and how to do it.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the most extraordinary things I've ever seen from a channel migrant. It was a 45-minute live stream on TikTok, hundreds of people watching along. Some of his guests, and this was all in Pashto, one of the dialects in Afghanistan, we had it translated, but some of his guests appeared to include people in other asylum hotels around the country.
Brilliant. They've got a little network.
To share their experiences, their joint experiences about how they got into the country. And there was actually someone who came on who appeared to say that he'd been in the same Crown Plaza hotel and called it very nice.
Oh, good. So they're giving reviews. I mean, they may as well be on TripAdvisor. Are they reviewing the food and the laundry? I mean, this is a joke. I mean, they're taking the sodding mick out of us, aren't they?
I mean, what the most striking thing he said in that 45-minute stream was how, and some of the quotes I can read out, as your country is not your mother. You should go to the best place. This is the best place. I paid my money. I came. I put my life at risk. I mean, another video, he says, this is dedicated to those haters that were happy, thinking we either drowned or ended up dead, and then spins around in his chair and shouts, welcome to London, in the sort of way you might expect a tourist, if they're super happy to be here for even a weekend would do. This man is now here, it seems, permanently.
Oh, yes. Well, exactly. I mean, one might, again, certainly wouldn't want anyone to drown or to be dead at all. Although, as I said on the show earlier this week, I'm not really willing to give any effort to be concerned about this, because people are choosing to get on these boats. They know perfectly well how risky they are. But it is absolutely fascinating. Lots of other papers, your sister paper, The Times, got a front page today. They've got the channel migrants. I've been holding it up all morning. Loads of the boat migrants running to the boats to get on a boat in the morning in Calais. Not, as far as I can see, a single mother or one woman and child among them. Just young men of fighting age running to the boats. I mean, it is extraordinary who these people are. But the key thing about this is that they're blatant and they're open about it, and they know perfectly well they're going to be able to stay. They've chosen to come to this country. He was already in a safe country in France, no doubt travelled to a number of other safe countries as well from wherever he is really from. But he's basically advertising, saying, basically, come on in, the water's lovely, to the rest of the world. But shouldn't he have been one of the people detained? The government said they were going to have a one-in, one-out policy. They wouldn't give us the numbers, but an internal Home Office document said it would be up to 50 people a week in the pilot period, where someone would be detained and then they would be deported. Weren't sure how quickly. They would be sent back to France, and then we'd get someone else in return, apparently a legitimate asylum seeker. But this is a joke.
Yeah, tell your friends to come, is what he says on this live stream. Tell your friends to come. I mean, this is not someone saying, I'm so grateful for Britain's hospitality, I'm so happy to be here, I've escaped. It's someone saying, look at what they're giving me.
Yeah.
Look at the perks I am getting. Look at the service that I am being given. And he does give genuine asylum seekers such a bad reputation, people like this, because all he is doing is advertising other people who aren't fleeing war zones, who are already in safe countries, who come straight across the channel and join him. And you're right, these are the types of people with claims that are tenuous at best. These are the types of people that, as part of this deal, should be already back in France.
He's an economic migrant. But here's the thing. You say we don't have his identity yet. Presumably, I'd like to think someone in the Home Office or the Border Force would have looked at this guy. They processed and detained him. Surely they fingerprinted him. They know who he is, surely. Now there's clear evidence that he is just an economic migrant. Bye-bye.
Well, and they know where he is as well, because they put him in a four-star hotel. It's a very straightforward process. If they wanted to go and talk to him and ask the questions about, well, why are you advertising small boat crossings? Why are you advertising the services of people smugglers who are among the worst criminals in Europe?
Yeah.
If they wanted to talk about that, presumably they could. The question is the impetus there? This is only one guy. There's 50,270 others that have come across since July last year when Labour took office. Who knows who those people are?
Exactly.
Who knows how many of those? This guy, in all fairness to him, this guy could be among one of the better ones when you go down and you
We don't know. He's certainly good on tech. That's one thing. He'll be a wonderful influencer, so I'm sure. Thomas Godfrey, it's a great bit of reporting. It's a great story. Thank you for exposing that. News reporter at The Sun, Thomas Godfrey. Claire Pearsall. What do you even say?
What a cracking story. And you're right, this is just TripAdvisor for people smugglers.
Yeah.
What on earth are they doing? And why are the social media companies not clamping down on it?
Yeah, and again, these penniless, desperate people, penniless and desperate, and you're just like, they're not. It's all a jar. It's all just a one big lie. It's a big, sick joke being perpetrated on the British people, most of whom could not afford to stay in that hotel on their own income. That is what's obscene. Coming up, I'm going to ask Ian Duncan-Smith about that. He's on the show a little bit in a few moments. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all these big stories. Give us a call 0344 499 1000. We'll get to your calls in the next 20 minutes or so. This is Talk. We are, as you well know, the home of common sense.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon. Welcome back to the show. This is Talk the Home of Common Sense. Really appreciate your company, whether you're listening on DAB Plus Radio, on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube, your connected device, however you're doing it. Is it still just the 4? I don't know. I can't keep up. It is fabulous to have your company. Don't forget, if you miss anything on the show, you can go to my YouTube page called Julia Hartley-Brewer Show. You can hit subscribe. You never have to miss a thing. Coming up in this hour, ministers tried to dodge the blame yesterday about the number of illegal channel migrants. It hit, as we now know, 50,000 and plus under Keir Starmer as Prime Minister. The former Labour Home Secretary, still Education Minister Jackie Smith, said it was what is happening as a result of the last government. Is it really? Well, we'll talk about that with Sir Ian Duncan-Smith, former Tory leader, up next. We're also going to talk to him about official data showing that more than 1 million more people are now on jobless benefits in Britain in the last year alone. The new figures show the number of people claiming universal credit hit 8 million last month. At this rate, there will be no one left to pay the taxes to fund the benefits. Plus, MPs are calling on the government to fund free bus travel for people aged under 22 in England. Parliament's Transport Select Committee, which made the recommendation, said it would improve young people's access to work and skills opportunities and help embed long-term public transport use. Oh yes, I got some free bus travel in my youth. I never want to buy a car and go in a car and not have to listen to other people yapping, causing fights and playing their music loud and on the bus. Yeah, really. And teachers have the right to ask pupils to call them, well, this is very difficult. It's the gender-neutral title of MX. So it's either, it's MX or MX, however you want to pronounce it, instead of Mr, Mrs or Miss. This is what the Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, has said, who's rapidly turning out to be an absolute lunatic on a lot of these things. Women's rights groups quite rightly have criticised her for bringing a contested ideology into classrooms, said children should only be taught the fact of biological sex. I don't want anyone in the classroom who doesn't know whether they're a man or a woman, because you're a lunatic at that point. I don't want you teaching my kid. Call me old-fashioned, but there we are. All that coming up. I still want to get your calls. Lots of calls coming in. I'll get to more of your messages as well, particularly about the 50,000 channel migrants coming to Britain since Labour came to power. A Labour minister yesterday blamed the Tories for the record numbers. Who do you blame and why? Love to hear your response also to our interview with the Sun reporter Thomas Godfrey about that TikTok live stream question-answer session of a channel migrant called Alexandra. He very much a man. Who basically say, yeah, come to Britain, got a lovely 4-star hotel. We are not going to beat the people smugglers when you've got things like that going online. Plus, why 1 million more people are claiming jobless benefits in Britain since Labour came to power last year. 1 million in just a year. In just a year, it was 3.5 million claiming universal credit in 2019 before lockdown. It's now 8 million people. Unless everyone's got long COVID. Oh, as Mark Littlewood pointed out a little bit earlier, another plague has hit. It's just somehow miraculously not made it onto the BBC at 6 o'clock. Something different is going on. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of that. Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. You can text the word talk and your message to 87222. Get in touch with us on X at Talk TV. Calls are charged at the national rate. Text cost 1, standard network rate message. Delighted to say Claire Pearsall, former Conservative government advisor, still joins us. Just in terms of the jobless benefits, I want to talk about that first. 1 million more people in a year says something very bad is going on. And I say, unless it is a plague we haven't heard about, something is going horribly wrong in our benefits system.
I think there are a couple of things to look at, and one of them is the unemployment level, given what the current government has done to businesses and employers, making it much more expensive to employ someone with the national insurance contributions, employers' national insurance contributions, the minimum wage, and then all of the kind of rights, workers' rights that are being brought in that go against everything an employer can do to increase their workforce. So I think that there's all the burden on businesses. There is the businesses who are closing down because they can't afford to continue. So you've got that, but then also you've got people's attitude towards being out of work.
I think that's the key thing.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both on this.
I think
there
always
are
tell
fewer
us vacancies to work because they've got a job.
Yeah.
Work. They're
willing to.
I know
get
it's
out
hard
of
for some people, depending on the level of job you're looking at, the qualifications and your age. I know all of that, but the idea that any young person can't get any kind of job at some point,
nonsense.
It is just nonsense, isn't it? Well, let's talk about this with someone who does know. He's the former Work and Pensions Secretary for 6 years, Sir Ian Duncan-Smith, still a Conservative MP, well, the former Conservative Party leader as well. A very, very good afternoon to you, Sir Ian.
Afternoon, Julia.
There's an awful lot I want to talk to you about. Goodness me, a lot in the news for a quiet August, eh? But these jobless benefit claimants up by 1 million since Labour came to power, up by from 3.5 million to 5 million in just the last 6 years. You famously, you introduced universal credit, much criticised, by the way, by the Labour opposition, and then happy to continue it once they got into power. But you managed to cut the number of claimants. You managed to get more families into work, cut the number of workless households. What has happened to turn all of that on its head?
Well, we had the lowest number of workless households since records began when I left office, and we did it by a number of different things. First of all, by always saying that work must pay more than benefits do. That's been reversed. I'll give you some figures for that in a second. And we also introduced the rule that basically we capped overall benefits. So if it was the view that we capped benefits at a certain level, so you couldn't earn by going to different benefits a load of money, you'd have a cap. All of that was in place. And universal credit doesn't set the values of these things. Universal credit is a mechanism to make sure that we know what everybody's claiming, we know what a household is claiming, and we know how to limit all of that. What does set the value for benefits is government. Independent policy of government says this is how much benefits will be, and what you end up with is benefits now becoming more of a draw than work. And I'll give you there's a very interesting little figure that I was digging away at last week through the Centre for Social Justice. The reality is that an out-of-work claimant receiving average universal credit and personal independence payment, PIP, due to ill health will receive $25,000 a year by 2026 compared to the $22,500 a full-time worker on minimum wage would take home after tax.
Yeah.
That is exactly where
you need to know. And you wouldn't even need to be paying someone more on benefits. You could pay a bit less, but the fact that someone doesn't have to go out to work every single day in a minimum wage job would still make it a draw. It is about people making completely rational decisions in many cases not to work because it pays better or just as well or not much worse than to not work.
Yes, I mean, the reality is that most people, I think, genuinely want to be in a job, work and try and earn their way. We are, again, dealing with a chunk of people that have got caught up since COVID on the idea that work isn't really that necessary.
Yeah. Well, it isn't. Well, it isn't, though, for them.
It is. It is, because work is more than just money.
Well, you know that, and I know that. But for them,
being respected by yourself and your colleagues, and it's about understanding that the money you earn is the money you spend, and you do what you like with what you earn through the sweat of your brow. What you don't have is somebody dishing out money. And
you know as well as I do, there are an awful lot of people who think people who go to work every day, particularly in low-paid jobs, are mugs. They think they're mugs when they can get it all for free.
Yeah, there are going to be people, and the trouble is that's expanded dramatically. It starts with kids who leave school. Unless you focus on how to get them into work, what actually happens during COVID was that they took all the face-to-face interviews out. So it was very slow getting them back. That meant that people basically could get away with quite a lot. The face-to-face interviews are vital because, when I've sat in job centres when I was running it, they would be very tough on those claimants and say you are obligated to do the following 5 things. You haven't done them, we're going to take an element of your benefit off you. And a lot of that was scrapped at the time. It's a balance. If you want people to go to work and you want them to take the jobs, there will be some of those who will try not to do that. Well, you need to say to them, the choice is very simple. You either take the job or you lose the benefit.
Yeah, but it's got to be all the benefits. And that's the thing, we were talking earlier about workfare. I'm pretty sure most of our audience would agree with the idea, unless you're talking about somebody, again, genuinely struggling. Someone's just been out of work for, they've been paid all their life, worked all their life, and they've been paying in, and they're out of work and they're looking for the right job. I mean, I've got no issue with that. That's what benefits should be for, to help tide people over. But people who genuinely haven't got any intention to work or never had a job, workfare, you're going to have to turn up every day somewhere. I think, A, a lot of these people would find themselves another job pretty sharpest. B, a lot of these people are actually already working. They're just doing it on the sly. They're not paying tax and they're not in the system, but they won't be able to turn up to do the workfare because they've got another paid job. We need to tackle all of this, and there needs to be a lot more judgment. There needs to be, I'm sorry, I've used this word quite a lot on the show lately, we need to have a bit more shame. People should be ashamed of not being in work if they are able to work.
Yes, of course, and we did run a programme called Work Experience for young people who hadn't been able to hold a job down, hadn't had a job, who then went to interviews and couldn't get employed because they didn't have any experience. So we put them into companies for 2 months. We carried on paying an element of their benefit and said if the companies took them on, they get an extra month, that'll be it. Lots of companies said they'd only do it because they'd give them a chance. In fact, about 60% went into work with the companies they were in because
Brilliant.
they learned how to get up in the morning, do the right thing, not leave in the evening, all of that stuff. We were attacked endlessly by unions and by some of the MPs by the left to say this was slave labor, that what we were doing was giving companies free labor that they could then abuse. And they just don't get it. The idea is many of these kids that we now call the NEETs, not in employment, educational training, they've had no experience of work.
Yeah.
They grew up in families sometimes where nobody had ever done a job.
Yeah.
We tried to break that. We did begin to break that. That's why we had the lowest number of workless households. But what's reversed through that has been from COVID onward, we didn't focus on saying to people, there are choices in life.
Exactly, and there are penalties for making the wrong choices.
Exactly right.
I've spoken to so many people who run small businesses and so many people who run really big businesses who try and give people a chance, apprenticeships or trainee schemes, which they've got, they've said, look, I myself started on this scheme and I'm now the MD. Look, we're not taking the mick, we're not using you, not abusing you. But people who literally apply for jobs, don't turn up for the interview, turn up for the interview late, expect to get a second interview, outraged when they don't turn up on the first day of the work, or get their mum to call in and say, well, it's raining, they're not coming in. And people think I'm joking. These are real things that have happened.
But let me just tell you, honestly,
people have got the wrong attitude.
Before COVID, our rules were any of that was sanctionable.
Good.
So if you didn't turn up to an interview, you got sanctioned. You got your benefits taken off you. If you stepped out of work deliberately, you weren't sacked or fired, you went on to benefits, you wouldn't get your benefits for the first period simply because you had chosen to be out of work.
Yep.
If that is the case, then you get sanctioned. Responsibility means you make choices. The point I kept coming across, why we set up universal credit, it opens the door to do this. What has happened, I'm afraid, is it has not been used for it. We know now when people are out of work, when a household is in work or out of work, what the total money is that a household can have. We could act on that very clearly because we at last, for the first time, which UC does, is it allows us to know what the total income and
puts it all into one pot, indeed.
Exactly
well,
right.
again, I think most of us just despair, frankly, of the system as it is. We're also despairing about the latest migrant figures. Jackie Smith, former Home Secretary, you'll know her well, she's now Baroness Smith. She's now Education Minister, but she was doing the media round yesterday. She was asked about the 50,000 figure that was now, after she was on air, 50,000 official figure, more than that arrived here on these Channel migrant boats since Keir Starmer came to power. And she basically said it was the fault of the last government because you kind of let this problem fester and grow and become more of a problem rather than the fault of the current government that had been in power for the entire year of that growth in migrants. 48% growth it's been. Do you agree it's the Tory government's fault?
No, I think the government, the present government, has a huge part to play in all of this. There is only one way to resolve this migrancy boat problem. It's not smash the gangs. That is a lot of nonsense. For every gang that you break, another one springs up in 5 seconds. And the reality is people are prepared to pay. So it's not the gangs, as it were. Yes, they're terrible and all that they do, and people risk their lives, but people don't get on those boats for free. They pay. Thousands of pounds they pay, and they get onto the boats because the boats are theirs as a result of the payment. Now, why are they paying? Because, as you saw in this ridiculous TikTok thing, which I saw just now, you can see why. Because they all think this is the land of milk and honey. That once you get here, that you will never have to return, that you will always receive money, and that all these jobs are open to you, which the British people won't do. So that's where they think they're going.
No, and you get a 4-star hotel, and we've seen this TikTok and live streaming. Look at my lovely hotel. Look at the view. Look at the big king-size bed. I mean, come on.
So there is only one way of dealing with this, and this is absolute fact. You've got to make a deterrence. You've got to take away the pull factor. The only way to do that is to make it clear that if they arrive on our shores and they are not legally a migrant as a result of asylum, already established before they even left, then they will immediately be sent either home to their country or to a place like Rwanda. The Labour government, the Labour opposition, opposed every element of that, and the courts, as a result of the human rights nonsense, actually then tried to stop it. The only way to do this, and we know that because when we first announced it, when it was about to start, before the courts got their teeth into it, we saw people flying across to Ireland as fast as they could. to claim in Ireland. And that's the reason was they thought they would lose their claims here in the UK as asylum seekers. So they were literally, you saw them camping out on the streets in Dublin. And that showed, and lots of the boats stopped suddenly coming over because people aren't going to spend their money if they think there's a chance they won't stay here.
Yeah.
Now we should have gone to that. And the advice to the government is very simple. Reinvigorate that plan and make it clear to the courts that we are not going to abide by the idea that Article 8, a right to family life, means that anybody can be here. And this one in, one out, by the way, is utter nonsense. It's not one out, one in. It'll be one out, and then one in will come in with all their families. So
plus,
it'll be
plus the other 17 who are already here because under the pilot scheme it's only 50 people.
Because they'll come in as legals.
Yeah.
So
Exactly. They've got. If you've got a second
really.
cousin in Leicester, Ian, you can come in because you've got a link to the country.
But that's the point. So
let me also ask you about another story, because again that's criminality. These are illegal migrants who enter the country illegally. But we've also got the criminality at a different scale, but shoplifters. A policing chief, or the Conservative Police and Crime Commissioner, for Thames Valley, Matthew Barber, has said the public has a duty to stand up to shoplifters rather than relying solely on the police. He says, if you're not even going to challenge people, you're not going to try and stop them, then people will get away with it. That's not just about policing, that's a bigger problem in society. People who don't do anything, you're part of the problem. He says this is not about, rugby tackling people, but we should all be responsible citizens. That said, Dame Diana Johnson, the policing minister, the Labour policing minister, has said today, this is shocking, that shopkeepers should not place high-value items close to store entrances in an attempt to stop shoplifting. What do you make of both those different pieces of advice?
Well, let me deal with the last first. I mean, really, obviously she never ran a shop. The reality is you push everything to the back of the store and not close to the door makes a mockery of the whole idea of what
let's not have anything in the shop just in case someone steals it.
And then I saw this thing the other day, which I commented on, was that this poor bloke had put a note up saying that the shoplifters were scumbags and they had locked stuff up. They are utterly scumbags. I mean, the truth is the gangs are involved in this now. It's very organised. We have it. I think it's an epidemic, frankly, across the whole of the UK. The police have been unbelievably reluctant to get out onto the high streets because they say it's not useful use of their time. These shoplifters are not just casual people picking up something because they can't afford it.
Exactly.
They're people who will strip the shelves of boots of £10,000 in a go. They take it round to stores, little shops, and they will then sell that to them at a cheaper price, and they go on to sell it. There's lots the police could do to crack down on this, not least of which is be in plain clothes on the high streets and arrest these people. We also need to get the courts, when it comes to shoplifting, which is both violent and antisocial. I mean, people are scared stiff in the shops.
Absolutely.
Poor people behind the counters. I've seen film in my constituency with their backs pressed up against the wall, being threatened by these.
These people are peaceful until challenged. If you challenge, then they are very much not peaceful.
And I have a constituent who runs a wonderful little family butchers, Shaw's Butchers on Station Road. And he did tackle somebody. He's not a spring chicken, but he had a go at this bloke who was thieving stuff out the front end of the store. He tackled him. The man ran away. He caught him again going into another shop later. He tackled him there. Luckily, there were some police that happened to be parked up just on the corner.
Unusual.
Not to do that, but they were parked up because they were looking for somebody. They came and stopped him and arrested this guy. But, as I said to Shaw, I said, you've got to be slightly careful because he could be carrying a knife.
Yep.
The trouble is when you're told go and tackle them, my answer to my people on the high street is actually don't do that. Some of these characters are very violent. They're gang related, and
they've got three mates round the corner.
The police need to be on High Street within 30 seconds of any shop and grab them and take them into custody, and the courts need to put them straight inside.
20 I think on average the shoplifters have been convicted of, so they haven't committed but been convicted of 21 different offences before they go to prison. I mean, at that point, seriously, I would go third. Off you go, 5 years, bye-bye, off the streets. You could solve this tomorrow if you wanted to. Sir Ian Duncan-Smith, you've been talking a lot of sense. I can imagine an awful lot of the nation nodding away at everything you've said there. Sir Ian Duncan-Smith, former Conservative Party leader, former Work and Pension Secretary, still an MP, thankfully, giving some sense in the chamber. Thank you very much, Steve, for that. Claire Pissell, he's certainly right on the shoplifting issue, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely.
What an insult. You shouldn't have your expensive items at the front of the store.
Oh, don't be ridiculous.
again,
deal with the crims who are coming in and taking
don't wear
stuff.
your watch, don't have your phone out, let's all just stay at home. Let's just stay at home wearing sackcloth and ashes so no one steals from us.
Exactly. How about we just deal with the wrong-uns out there and put them in prison?
You've got to stop this nonsense, Claire. It'll never catch on.
Oh, common sense. Who'd have thought it? If you stop them shoplifting, you then stop them going on to be drug addicts or worse criminals.
Exactly.
And it is well documented that people start off doing shoplifting and then they graduate.
And it's not. And again, these people they're not sort of like young mums who are desperate, for nappies for their kid. What load of nonsense. We are talking about organised crime. Certainly, my local chemist on my high street. They literally have someone who's out on watch. As soon as they put the makeup out, they storm the store. Very violent, very aggressive.
Stealing to order as well.
Stealing to order, and it's sold online.
Yeah.
And
this is it. No comeback to it.
But again, by the way, there wouldn't be a market for a lot of this stuff if people didn't buy stuff off the back of the lorry. If it is too good to be true and cheap, it's because it's stolen.
Yes.
Because it's stolen and someone's been a bit... You might think, oh, well, there's no... Yeah, but these are big companies. Yeah, but, the shopkeeper and the security guard, they're often on pretty average or low wages and they're being terrified every day in their stores.
Do you want the shop to go into?
Yeah, and that's, you're perpetrating that. You really are. It is fascinating. Look, I'd love to get your calls on this. We'll get them up next on all the topics we're talking about. Do give us a call if you want to have your say. 0344 499 1000. They're up next. This is Talk.
So in order to deport asylum seekers without allowing them to claim asylum, which was what the Tories want to do and which was deemed to be illegal, you would have to leave the ECHR.
Correct.
The ECHR is a piece of legislation that underpins, for example, the Good Friday Agreement in Northern Ireland. So if you were to pull out of that international agreement, you are putting lives in danger in Northern Ireland. That's certainly not something I'd want to do.
That's not quite true, is
not
it?
something I'd want to
That's
see
not
the
quite
government
true,
do.
because you can guard against that by providing domestic legislation that would run in parallel with what is already there.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the home of common sense. Lots of common sense from our guest today, lots of common sense from Claire Pearce. So hopefully from me, definitely from you on the phone lines. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call to have your say. Let's speak to Nigel, who's in Portsmouth right now. He wants to have his say on benefits. An extra 1 million people claiming universal credit. What do you want to say, Nigel?
everyone should have a job. If you're able to get a job, you should be able to get a job. All this,
You Nazi, Nigel.
No, listen, I'm working class, okay? I'm kind of a handyman.
Yep.
And my 3 children, all in their 20s, they all went to university. One went to a rubbish university, got a pointless degree, but he worked all his way through. He started off cleaning toilets in the leisure centre.
Yep.
When he was 15, did all sorts of stack shelves, working overnight in Tesco's when he was at uni. He's now an area manager for a German conglomerate, and he earns bundles of money.
Thank you very much.
Daughter,
Work ethic.
My oldest daughter,
it matters.
My oldest daughter in her mid-20s, she started off working in a fish and chip shop, basically cleaning. She then, when she graduated, she took a rubbish job as a gallery assistant in some art gallery in central London. She now runs a gallery. She travels all over the world. She's breaking in. She's only 25.
Yeah.
My youngest graduated a year ago. Wow, she did the most rubbish jobs. There's an app called Stint, which is for students to work in restaurants in central London, which is basically doing the dishes.
Yeah.
She's now got her nose deeply in the trough. She's a chief of staff for some, I don't know, climate change funding or something. There is billions swirling around in that. And she, in the last year, she visited over 30 countries. They need to work. It doesn't matter what they do.
They want to work. Because they were
It's
brought
so
up
good
by
for
a
them.
mum and dad who worked and believed in the value of work. That's the problem, isn't it? A lot of people just don't understand the value of work.
Absolutely. Get to work early. Make sure your hair is presentable. Make sure you brush your hair. You wear your clean clothes.
Turn up on time or early. I would say early. I've got to be honest, we've had some work experience people here from families, frankly, I think would know better, where they turn up late and just leave where they want. And you think,
Julia,
sorry, did you not get the memo?
Julia, if the job starts at 9, that means you're ready to work at 9. You're not rocking through the door, putting the kettle on. You get there at quarter. It's not difficult. It's really not difficult.
No.
It's all about the attitude. There's a lad I know who's from Uganda. My wife's just got him a job in a hotel. And it is doing the dishes, but you would think he's got the best job in the world. He's so enthusiastic.
But he knows he won't be doing the dishes forever. And also lots of the really big companies that treat people really well, at the top end, the McDonald's or whatever. I know someone who was a director at Marks and Sparks. Even the directors have to work on the shop floor during the 2 weeks before Christmas. They need to know what the staff are dealing with and talk to the customers, and that they have to do those jobs because they're not beneath them. Because if you work in that level and you think those jobs are beneath you, you're probably in the wrong job. Nigel, great call. Thank you so much. Got a few more messages on benefits as well. Mark says, my grandson, 21, is without a job. He's desperate for a proper job, but there are so few out there. Time these 0 hours contracts were scrapped. Meanwhile, we'll have to support him as he lives with us. Well, I think he should go and get any job. I'm sorry, I think he should go and get any job, and any job will then lead to another job. Henry says, sorry, I'd love to comment, but I need to get back to work. My taxes are needed to fund this wave of freeloaders. And Isla says, that will be all those new doctors and nurses that keep turning up on rubber boats. And Edmund says, what a shock. If you make every employee cost more in national insurance contributions, point Claire Pierce was making earlier, most employers will reduce the number of employees. Not because the owners are greedy billionaires, but mostly because in the current economy, many companies are already struggling to stay afloat. It's serious. It's just, that's just basic, isn't it? Let's go to Mark, who's on the line, and he wants to talk about those latest migration figures. Mark, what do you want to say? Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon, Julia Duck. You all right?
Honestly, every time you do it, I just look forward to it every day.
You're welcome. I was just going to say that last caller there. I mean, when I was at uni, I'd done a YTS before I went to uni.
YTS, remember that? Yeah.
Yeah, that's the best thing I ever did. Got into the care industry, which was a great fallback job all the time for me. Which is what I did at uni. When I was at uni, I was doing care work part time. But yeah, side issue. The migrant guy that's telling people this is the greatest country, blah blah blah. The thing I find most sickening really about it is you just know the government, the establishment, the North London set, the dinner party brigade, they will literally pat themselves on the back that these people think we're the greatest country in the world.
Yes. Even though, weirdly, those people don't think we're the greatest country in the world. They're ashamed of our country. That's the irony.
Well, yeah, but they'll still pat themselves on the back, Julia. It's disgusting. I mean, that guy...
the TikTok guy on the Sun. Yeah.
Sorry?
The TikTok guy on the front of the Sun.
Yeah. he should be, if the government gave us stuff about its people, he should be publicly removed from the country.
Yep. I know, but they won't.
Happen.
He's got human rights, Mark. Of course, he's a desperate refugee fleeing France.
It's absolutely ridiculous, isn't it? I mean, it's crazy. I just wanted to just completely go off on a tangent, Julia.
Really quickly, because I've got to get to a break.
Are you aware? Do you remember Isabel Vaughan Spruce?
No.
The Christian preacher, silent preaching. That was arrested. Can you remember?
Oh, okay. Yes, it's vaguely familiar. Yeah. Very quickly, I'm really sorry, Mark.
She's being investigated yet again for the third
You're right.
time.
I've forgotten her name, but you're right. I've seen that. Yeah, well, I'm sure we will talk about that on another occasion. Mark, thank you for that. Appreciate it. 12:33 is the time. A couple of text messages as well about this. Who do you blame and why for these 50,000 channel migrants? Stacey says Labour started it. It continued under Tories. Both are to blame. Laurie says 50,000 unidentified, unscreened potential engineers, doctors and childminders. I think Laurie's being facetious. And Jackie says Labour and Blair is who she blames, but the Tories haven't exactly stopped any of it. We need a Trump, so reform is the only likely chance we have as it stands. Other than that, the UK has had it. Good luck, everyone. We're going to need it. Happy Wednesday, everybody. I feel your pain, I really do. 12:33 is the time. Up next, we are going to be talking to Norman Baker. He's a former Transport Minister with the Liberal Democrats, and he's in favour of an MP's demand today that under 22-year-olds in England should get free bus travel. But should they? I think we should ban under 22s from the bus altogether, because they're the ones causing all the trouble. Make buses much more pleasant for the rest of us, wouldn't it? That's up next. Stay tuned. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good afternoon. Welcome back to the show. 12:35 is the time. Just got 2 bits of breaking news for you before we go to our next guest, both of which just are flabbergasting. So can you sit down when I tell you this? Please, if you're driving, pull over. Honestly, you need to. So Sadiq Khan, the London mayor, is considering whether to give Londoners flexible working hours during heat waves. It's not April the 1st, genuinely. There's a range of proposals could appear in the London Heat Risk Delivery Plan. It's our 4th heat wave of the year. It's called summer. It's called summer. It's warm. It's summer. But there's a City Hall questionnaire running to the end of the month, and the idea is that basically you would have a right as a Londoner to flexible hours. Staff would be required to fulfil their contractual obligations, but they would be allowed to adjust their start and end times if they so wish. I mean, I just can't even. It just don't bother going to work at all. Again, we're all going to be on benefits. We're going to get 4 billionaires to pay for all the tax. Job done. Also, equally, they really are this useless story from the government. David Lammy, the Foreign Secretary, he took the Vice President of the United States on a fishing trip this week near his formal country residence, Chevening. Turns out when they went fishing, by the way, to be fair, David Lammy did not catch a fish, J.D. Vance did, and so did his children. David Lammy broke the law because he didn't actually have a fishing licence. You couldn't make this stuff up. He's turned himself in. He's turned himself into the environmental watchdog and is now liable for a fine after What an idiot! You think someone on his staff might wonder this? Now, look, we're not country folk. He's a city boy. I'm a city girl. Claire Pilson, you are a country girl. You know that part of the town. Everyone knows around there you have to have a fishing licence. Yeah. Why do you need it? Is that just jobs-worthy regulation, or do you need it? Is there a reason for it?
No, I mean, there are environmental reasons, the number of fish.
Can't have everyone turning up.
Can't have everybody.
There won't be any fish left.
No, absolutely. So there are restrictions on these. And a friend of mine actually sent me a message with that photograph going, I hope he's paid for his licence, because it's a a really big thing.
And how do you get a fishing licence?
You can buy them online. Okay. It's very simple. You just need a credit card.
They really are that useful. You people out there who think everything that the government does, or freedom of speech, or online safety, or COVID policy, or whatever it is, migrant policy, is all a big conspiracy. This is how useless, incompetent, ignorant and thick they are, right? The Foreign Secretary takes the Vice President of the United States fishing, and he didn't have a fishing licence, but he needed a fishing licence, but he's reported himself to the Environment Agency. You could not make this stuff up. Yet they do every single day. Right, let's talk about the latest. You couldn't make it up from Parliament. The MPs on the Parliamentary Transport Select Committee said that under 22-year-olds should get free bus travel in England. Why should they do that? Well, let's talk to Norman Baker, former Lib Dem MP. He's also the former Transport Minister under that Cameron and Clegg coalition government. A very good afternoon to you, Norman.
Hello, Juliet. You're looking very bouncy, and I might say I'm glad to see you've not disappeared with your flexible working hours.
Well, indeed. Before we get to the bus travel, what do you make? A, the flexible working hours. B, the Foreign Secretary not knowing he needed a fishing licence.
Well, I'm sorry, it gets cold and it gets hot. You just live with it. That's the way it is.
Thank you. Yes.
And as far as David Lamb is concerned, it was just it's just embarrassingly incompetent, I suppose.
I mean, I think we've summed everything up very briefly and succinctly and very accurately. Thank you very much, Norman. But you think it's a good idea for hard-working taxpayers and other bus and other public transport users to pay for all under 22-year-olds in England to get free bus travel?
Well,
Why?
look, I mean, speaking as a pensioner, which I am these days, we get free bus passes, we get free prescriptions, we get free this and that. And actually, the younger generation at the moment is going to be the first generation probably that is less well off than its parents. That's one thing. Second thing is bus passenger numbers are down since COVID. They haven't recovered properly, and that means a lot of bus routes are being lost. Now, we want to get more people on buses.
We want to get more paying passengers on buses. More people on buses doesn't keep the bus service going. More paying passengers does.
Well, it depends, because once the evidence suggests from the Department for Transport that if you get them early, you get them using the bus early, then they will stay on the bus, and there will continue to be bus paying passengers later on.
This is, I'm sorry, on what? Really? Really? If they can't afford any other mode of transport, buses now, bearing in mind, are the most used mode of public transport in the country, a long, long way more than trains. And people in government yap on about trains, which are caught by most people not even once in a year. However, I used to get the bus to and from school when I wasn't cycling. The weather was bad or it was too hot. I used to get the bus. I used buses early. I genuinely, you know the reason I go to work every day, Norman, is so I don't have to get the bus. It's literally one of the main reasons going to work, because I hate getting on the bus. And the main problem on buses is young people under the age of 22. A bus any time around school hours. Oh my God, the mayhem, the violence, the threats, the misbehaviour, the rudeness. I'm sorry, getting young people on buses early isn't going to make them stay on buses unless they just aren't able to afford or able to manage any other mode of transport.
I think it will keep them on buses, because at the moment what they're doing more than ever is, for example, using Uber. They're using Uber because it's sometimes cheaper than the bus, and particularly when there's more than one of them.
Well, we've got £3 max fine, in fact, max cost of a bus in England. I know there are different rules in different parts of the United Kingdom, but I've never got an Uber that was less than £3.
No, but I mean, you can share an Uber, and you can't. Whereas you get on a bus, then you individually pay your fare. So if there's 2 or 3 of you going somewhere for the evening, it's going to be cheaper to get an Uber.
And it's probably a lot quicker and more pleasant as well. Good for them. Good for them.
It might be, which is why you have to get people on buses, because if we end up with buses continuing to lose passengers, which we are at the moment, then the bus service will go. And that's the reality of where we are.
But hold on, no, if you want more people to be on buses, you need to have more people going out to their jobs and not working from home. So they need to get on the buses.
I agree with that.
But then paying for their fares. But we can't continue to subsidise everyone. I'm really sorry that under 22-year-olds are struggling, a lot of them, but so are a lot of people who are 23 and 28. I would say the people who are struggling the most would be adults who are like in their 30s or late 20s trying to have kids, who are really, really struggling, putting every penny away to try and pay for the rent or the deposit for a home and pay for children. They're struggling more than a 22-year-old who's got their £4 Starbucks drink and has got their designer kit on, and the girls have got their fake eyelashes and their nails done at 30 quid a pop. I mean, come on, give me a break. They're not hard up.
No, I'm sorry. I think some of them are hard up, and they're relying more and more on their parents in a way that didn't happen in my generation.
Well, that's because parents didn't have anything to give them.
And they've got tuition fees, I have to mention, of course, which I took some responsibility for. And they've got a lower minimum wage. They are not getting a very good...
Minimum wage has gone up. That's rubbish. Minimum wage has gone up.
No, but they've got a lower level for people under a particular age, which affects them. So, they aren't having a great time of it. And I'm going to defend...
I'm not saying they're having a great time of it. I'm saying they can afford a bus fare. Well, they could give up other things and afford their bus fare.
There's a wider societal point, actually, which is that you want to make sure that you protect public services.
Absolutely.
And you make sure they're there for the future. And we have to get more people on buses.
But I don't understand why you think more non-paying passengers. You're saying, at some point they will be paying. They're using a bus at 17 or 18, so they're more likely to use it at 23.
Well, because if you've got pensioners at the moment, for example, get free, as I do, get a free bus.
And I don't think you should. I think it should be means tested.
Well,
I think it's obscene that my parents, who are more than able to pay, frankly, for a taxi everywhere, let alone a bus, should get free bus travel. I think it's obscene.
Well, there's a lot of benefits for pensioners which aren't means tested, and that's a wider argument, Julie, as you know, including, for example, prescriptions. I mean, why should pensioners get free prescriptions? But they do, irrespective of their...
I think I'm the only person paying for prescriptions in my entire local chemist. They look at me, they say, do you pay for prescriptions? I say, yes. They look at me like, oh, do you? Haven't had one of those before.
No, well, there's a whole issue about that. But the fact of the matter is that old people tend to vote. And governments of all colours have targeted their policies to satisfy old people.
Well, young people should go out and vote then. Sodom.
Well, they don't go out and vote.
Well, they should. They should. Or we could just lower the voting age to 16, like Labour have done. But
I would encourage them to go out to vote. Of course I would. And we did do in my time when I was encouraging people to go and do that in my own constituency. But the reality is they haven't. And governments have tailored their policies for older people and not worried too much about younger people. Now, that's, equity across the generation.
That's young people's fault then, isn't it? They don't vote. I've got no sympathy for anyone moaning about any government policy if they didn't vote.
Well, there's a wider point about how easy it is to vote.
Oh, goodness me, it's perfectly easy to vote. I know there's an issue in terms of ID, and pensioners can use pretty much any piece of ID, and young people can't.
This is the point, Julia. Pensioners can, and I can go with my bus pass.
Young people didn't vote when they didn't need to. Then they didn't need ID. They still didn't vote then.
They need a higher level of ID.
But they didn't need ID until a couple of years ago, and they didn't vote then either.
Well, I mean,
they brought it on themselves. If you're too lazy to go out and vote, you've got to have policies that benefit you. But again, why is every policy always about something more free for people? If young people are struggling, why don't we make sure they've got better education when they're making more jobs, getting them off benefits? I mean, why don't we do that?
Well, I agree with that as well. It's not. I'm not. Look, I'm not in favour of these policies which are coming out with 8 million people on benefits. I'm not in favour of that. And a lot more needs to be done to get people educated properly about how society works. They're not educated properly in this country, in my view. They don't know how to open a bank account. Half of them can't add up properly. The education system is not delivering for young people in this country, and that's part of the problem. And I also agree that work should be incentivised in a way that's not always. And I was listening to your previous callers, and absolutely right, the guy who said that they should be there at 8:45, putting the kettle on, not starting at 9 o'clock or later. All those things are right. So I'm not suggesting that free bus passes is a be-all and end-all.
I get that.
I'm saying it's part of a societal mix. It makes sense. And of course, they are free in Scotland for young people, and there's a discount for young people in Wales. Yeah,
well, you say that again, or anything that's free. It's like in London, and it's free for free for under 16s, and it's reduced price 16 and 17-year-olds. But it's not free because taxpayers pay for it.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, in London, for example, you get free travel over 60.
Yeah.
Now, that's wrong because people are using that free travel to go to work and get a full-time job, and they're getting free travel.
In 3 years' time, I can get a free bus pass. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, well, you shouldn't be able to get it when you're still in full-time employment, and you can. So actually, you could pay for some of the young people to get free bus passes by taking away those who are
But here's the thing: it's always about, well, we've got that money, or we could not do it, and then we could give the money back to the hard-working taxpayers who are actually going out and paying for it and paying full fare. Norman Baker, so good to talk to you. I really appreciate your time. Former Lib Dem MP, former Transport Minister, Claire Pinsell.
I'm always at the wrong point of time and age.
Yeah.
I get nothing for free. I don't get free prescriptions. I don't get free buses.
And by the time you're old enough, they won't be.
They're going to move the goalposts.
Yeah.
So however old I get, I'm never going to be old enough.
No, exactly. I mean, genuinely, it's just infuriating. As I said, I banned under 22-year-olds from the bus full stop. And I'm genuinely. Yes. I know people think I joke about these things. Really not joking. 12:47 is the time. Going to take a break. Then we're going to be talking about the madness going on in schools. No wonder they always want to get on the bus. The trans ideology in schools with teachers. We're told by the Education Secretary having the right to demand that, ask that pupils call them by a gender-neutral title instead of Miss, Mrs. or Mr. What is that gender-neutral title and how on earth do you pronounce it? We'll find out up next with Kate Barker from the LGB Alliance. This is Talk.
You know, I can speak personally as a mum, as a grandmother to two young children of just 3 and a year and a half, and it worries the life out of me. What sort of world are we bringing our children into? You know, I don't even feel safe anymore working late in my own office. I used to work until sometimes 9 or 10 at night. Now I go when my staff leave because I don't feel safe on the streets, and that's in Gravesend.
On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Miss, well, that's going to be gone very, very soon. That cry, we've all heard our teachers doing that, Miss, Mister, because teachers, according to the Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, are going to have the right to ask pupils to call them by a gender-neutral title instead of Miss, Mrs. or Mister. They're going to be allowed to ask to be called MX or MX. I don't know why that's come about, but apparently this is the option that apparently is on the cards. The Education Secretary, teachers can request, she said, that children call them by their gender-neutral honorific instead of traditional titles. Let's talk about this with Kate Barker, who's Chief Executive of the LGB Alliance, representing lesbian, gay and bisexual people. A very good afternoon to you, Kate. Not non-binary. Thanks for joining us. So many different acronyms these days. Well, again, how do you even pronounce MX?
Well, I can't help you at all on that. I've got absolutely no idea. I think it's like mooks or something like that, some kind of noise.
Mooks. I know the answer to the question, mooks. Mooks, the hamster ate my homework, mooks.
I mean, it's crazy, isn't it? I mean, somebody who doesn't know what sex they are should not be teaching children. I'd say that's the starting point. But also, kids have eyes, and being able to tell who is male and who is female is a real evolutionary imperative. It's really important for very small children to be able to know who's a man and who's a woman. Yeah. But the thing is that telling children that you're not male or female is a lie.
Yep.
And it's wrong to lie to children, but it's especially wrong to teach a child that if an adult asks you to lie in order to make them happy, then they should do it. You know, this makes them really vulnerable.
Children, I can see some very, very dodgy things happening as a result. That leads you down a very questionable route, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it absolutely does. You know, it's a fundamental of teaching your kids to be resilient and to be safe is don't trust adults that tell lies, especially don't trust them if they compel you to go along with their lie.
Yeah.
It's
and you get punished if you don't. And that's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
But we're told again, teachers have the right to ask for it. We're not clear what the punishment would be if children don't, but no doubt they'd be accused of being transphobic or some other phobic. And whereas actually, as you say, we have eyes and ears. You know, we know babies, young children, everybody knows who is a man and who is a woman. That largely the people who are demanding these things are men who are dressed sometimes in women's clothing, and we're all supposed to pretend that we don't know they're men when we do. It's ridiculous. But again, why is anyone, whatever's one's notion of oneself or sexuality or anything like that, I don't think it's even remotely relevant to my, child if they're 7 or even 17. Not interested. You're there to teach English or geography or maths. No one cares about your personal life. In my day, you didn't even know your teacher's first name. Someone found out a teacher's first name. It was a really, really big deal. I don't want to know about your sense of self or identity. I don't care.
Yeah, I mean, children need to be taught facts. And when they're very little, it's good that they know there are lots of different kinds of families. And then when they're a bit older, they should know some people are heterosexual, some people are homosexual, and some people are bisexual. And then they need to know where babies come from. And then the older kids need to know, if they're thinking about a sexual relationship, how to keep themselves safe.
Yep.
But what they don't need is to be taught gender identity ideology as fact. I mean, maybe in the sixth form, you can start to discuss ideas and ideas of identity, and you can look at things more philosophically. But if you've got really tiny children, don't tell them your belief and pretend that it's fact, because children will believe it. I think the worst, though, is that head teachers really want some guidance. They're floundering, and
they're getting it at both ends, aren't they? They're getting it from people like us, and they're getting it from the lunatics who think their children should be told that their identity is decided by them, and they might be born in the wrong body.
I think they're having a bit of a rough deal, and they need this guidance urgently. But unfortunately, it leaves them open to either activist teachers, of which there are many.
Yeah.
But worse is some of these third-party groups, which are very keen to come in and talk about it all. And a completely typical example of one of these is an outfit called Pop and Ollie. And I was having a look at some of their... they look very colourful and friendly. They had a look at some of their materials. And there was a book for 4-year-olds called Little Red Riding Dude. And it was about a boy that went into the forest and he came across a wolf in a dress who was crying, and he did everything he could to make the wolf feel included. And I thought, wow, that's really interesting. Because if you look at the original fairy tale, what that tells you is that somebody pretending to be who they're not, i.e. grandma, is a danger. But this completely flips that narrative, and it says, kids, don't listen to your instincts. If you think somebody's a bit creepy or weird, that's you not.
You should be more inclusive. Again, and I've said this many times, I would like whoever wrote that hard drive to be checked. I'm absolutely serious. I genuinely. But this is the thing. This stuff is mad, and it's going on all the time. This stuff has also been perpetrated not just by Labour. I mean, Tory ministers and many others. But also we've had the joy that is Nicola Sturgeon, the former First Minister of Scotland, again, who thinks that rapists can self-identify and the like. J.K. Rowling has been in the news once again. She's been mocking Nicola Sturgeon, various interviews she's done, talking about publicise her memoirs coming out tomorrow. I've yet to get through the entire interview. She's done for half an hour now. It's too much to have to listen to her. But she's her memoir to warn about how we need to make public spaces safer for women. She said she talked about a horrible an MSP referring to her by a nasty name and talking about the rumours about her love life, and said, today a story of this type would stalk a woman around social media day and night. We have such a long way to make the public sphere safe for women and girls. I just worry that by the time we get there, there'll be too few women left in public life for it to matter. J.K. Rowling responded to this with the words, "Are you effing kidding me?" What do you make of that?
Well, it's a little bit rich to be worrying about women's safety, and at the same time, she would have been quite prepared to send Isla Bryson, the man, rapist, into
double rapist.
And was only stopped because there happened to be a great picture in the tabloids which woke people up to exactly what was happening there. But also, I thought it was quite instructive when she was asked about that. She was still referring to Isla Bryson as they. Them. And also suggesting that Isla Bryson had lost the right to identify as a woman because he was a rapist, as if nice men, or maybe there are a series of crimes. Maybe if you're a shoplifter, you can still identify as a woman.
Just not a sex offender.
If you had a punch up in a pub, perhaps you couldn't. It's just absurd.
It's just gobbledygook nonsense thinking, just like the mooks, my hamster ate my homework. Kate Barker, you guys have been a voice of sanity throughout this, Chief Executive of the LGB Alliance. Thank you for joining us. Time sadly is against us. Claire Pearsall, your face has been an absolute picture the whole way through that conversation.
I just can't get over this. It's nobody's business.
Yeah. No one cares. No one cares about your sexuality. No one cares about your identity.
Teach the kids English, teach them maths, whatever
Teach them
it is.
some facts.
Yeah, and leave your personal life to one side.
Don't tell my child they may be born in the wrong body. Absolutely not. I mean, one of my local schools brought in a man dressed as a woman who transitioned with his wife to say how she was perfectly in favour of it. Yeah, I'm sure she was absolutely loving every second of it. You got some cross-dresser in my, in the school. I mean, what are you thinking? Anyway, let it go. Claire Pearsall, it's been fabulous to have your company. Thank you so much for joining us. Ian Collins is here to tell us what's happening.
I mean, it's nobody's business. When Big Kenny down at the Rose and Crowns became somebody